Chapter 401, Galaxy Capital. The high-level origin lives of the Blood Crane Territory clan, all prostrate, suddenly felt a surge of Hunyuan power flood through them. It threaded into the surfaces of their life cores, etching intricate, infinitely deep sigils. They could feel that these patterns were far more profound than any bloodline. Should they flare even slightly, the life cores would be annihilated. Our life cores have been refined, the high-level origin lives realized at once. Many of them had avatars that had accompanied Shadow Lord into the Cultivator territory. They had long heard that in the Cultivator camp, all captured high-level and world-level Hunyuan had their life cores refined so they could never resist or betray. Only with refined life cores would the Cultivator camp dare to entrust heavy responsibilities to them. A private relief washed over the Blood Crane Territory clan. What they had feared most was that their captor would simply despise and exterminate them. Instead, they had been subdued and bound. They were alive. From now on, I will take control of the entire Blood Crane territory and move it into the Cultivator territory. Luo Feng's voice rang out, resonant across the territory. The clan understood. Their whole homeland was about to migrate. With a great rumble, the vast Blood Crane territory began to shift. Shadow power spread, and the territory began performing short-range spatial teleportations. Too slow. Luo Feng shook his head as he controlled the domain. The Blood Crane territory is huge. Even with the shadow energies in it, its migration speed can't match a world-level Hunyuan. Each teleport carried the territory only a small distance. 100 of those jumps wouldn't equal a single step for Luo Feng's own mobility. He calculated the migration would take on the order of 10 epochs to reach the Cultivator territory's Dark World group. As a Cultivator Lord who could travel quickly, he felt speechless. What had taken him only a little over 100 days to cross alone would take the territory ages to transport. That said, he counted himself lucky. Some mysterious locales could not be migrated at all. Places like Time Star drifted freely through timelines. Others, Eternal Land, the Abyss of Destruction, simply could not be moved. The initial Land and Blood Crane territory were among the more ordinary mysterious places, movable, but excruciatingly slow. Luo Feng left an avatar behind to govern the Blood Crane territory and instantly departed with his main battle avatar. There was work to be done in the Cultivator territory, and the Blood Crane territory's reservoir of power was virtually inexhaustible, enough that his main avatar could be formed with a thought. He also trusted few would be foolish enough to try to interfere within the territory itself. Outside, his defenses had weaknesses compared to some existences like Wu Lan, but inside that territory he would not fear 100 progenitors. The Blood Crane territory alone could fuel his source Great Destruction repeatedly. His main avatar wore a blood-colored robe. Though he was distancing himself from the territory, it had been refined into part of his life. Its source continued to empower him. That empowerment, the Blood Sea power, was a fusion of blood power, undying power, and shadow power. Even tapping only a portion of that posit force revealed vast potential. Using the Blood Sea power, Luo Feng could, with a single thought, sense shadows across a wide range. Wherever there was real matter, there was a corresponding shadow. Shadow power was omnipresent. Borrowing it extended his shadow teleportation range. He moved like a phantom, traversing long stretches of space-time in rapid succession. My current travel speed is approaching mid-tier among cultivator lords, Luo Feng mused, about 3 times faster than before. Previously, his speed had been only slightly faster than Wu Lan. Now he surpassed both Wu Lan and Naigu and was edging toward Jin's level, maybe 50 to 60% of Yuan's pace. Xingmang, Mo Man, and Ming Huang still outran him by far. They were among the top speeds in the infinite mixed origin space. For his body size, though, this increase was remarkable, owed largely to the Blood Crane territory's unique power. He felt a corresponding leap in defense. The 3 strands of the Blood Sea power primarily bolstered durability. Undying power lent a faint undying property to his physical form, greatly increasing toughness. Shadow power clothed his body with shadow-like qualities so that many attacks seemed to pass through, only 3 to 5/10 of their force actually connecting. Whereas before he could withstand the combined assault of 34 progenitors, he now felt capable of resisting 60 or 70 with little trouble. He still fell short of Wulan, who could be besieged by progenitors at will, but the improvement was marked. My specialties are becoming more specialized, Luo Feng chuckled inwardly, but my methods for killing haven't changed much. In just 39 days, his main avatar returned to the Dark World group of the Origin Continent Source World. He had finished the tasks in his territory. The job of rebuilding fallen territories would fall to his world-level Hunyuan, high-level Hunyuan, and countless subordinates. Of the 3,600 world clusters, only the 100-plus clusters held by the Ice Peak Camp remained to be reclaimed. The Ice Peak Camp's strength rivaled the Heavenly Origin Camp. With 12 undying and unannihilated existences among them, they were in some ways more troublesome. The Ice Peak Alliance was loose but powerful. 12 of the 28 seats in Eternal Land belonged to them. The Heavenly Origin Camp still feared death. The Ice Peak Camp did not. It's best handled through negotiation, Luo Feng decided. The Cultivator Camp had just finished a war. Another would be costly. Negotiations would be Yuan's task. He looked over the Origin continent. In just over 3 epochs, the continent had transformed beyond recognition. It had grown 100-fold in scale, but had been unified under a single dominant nation, the Galaxy God Country. Its renown rippled across the Origin continent and even into 100,000 primordial universes. Before Luo Feng refined the Source World, information about the Origin continent had been scarce in the primordial universe region. Afterward, he redefined the rules. The 1,000-fold changed reality. Any who reached Void True God could pass through the cycle of reincarnation passage to reach the Origin continent, the established path everyone could now comprehend. At the heart of the Galaxy God Country stood the Galaxy God Capital, formed by merging and massively expanding the former Huyang City and Galaxy Imperial Capital. Its scale rivaled a chaos state. Every power wanted a foothold there to be closer to Lord Luo Feng. The Galaxy God Country was governed by 3 tiers. At the top were the 9 Grand Chancellors, Shuxin, Luoping, Shimo, Origin Ancestor, the Primordial Chaos City Lord, Great Axe, Malosa, Zuoshanki, and Di Chu. Shimo's seat had been intended for Luo Hai, but Luo Hai declined, unwilling to bear the burdens. Shimo, a life Luo Feng had created among his various races, already had great influence and took the post when Luo Hai stepped back. Great Axe's appointment had stirred controversy. Hong, Luo Feng's elder brother, had long occupied a high station among humans in the primordial universe. Zhen Yan had been Luo Feng's teacher. Hong and Zhen Yan squared off in rivalry, yet Hong was actually Great Axe's disciple, and he supported Great Axe for the Grand Chancellor role. Zhen Yan admired Great Axe as well and backed him fervently. Great Axe's long-standing influence among high-level humans ultimately secured his place among the 9. Though some of the 9 were not the most powerful in raw strength, each held a Chancellor's edict personally refined by Luo Feng. Those edicts protected their bodies and souls and conferred the strength of the God King Ultimate Realm. Under the Origin continent's power limits, that was enough to contend with most dangers. Beneath the 9 were 72 Deputy Chancellors, 81 people in all, each personally vetted and confirmed by Luo Feng. Below them, Luo Feng rarely intervened. The Galaxy God Capital housed countless God Kings and God Emperors. The residences of the deputies and chancellors were vast. At the capital's center stood Lord Luo Feng's own residence. Finally, I have time to perfect this legacy. Half an epoch after returning from the Blood Crane territory, Luo Feng completed his legacy, the Mixed Origin Life Extinguishment Tao. It contained numerous chapters: Heartfire, Undying Body, Hunyuan Power, Life Origin, and traced a path from the basic God King stage all the way to Lord level. The other 7 lords had left their own legacies in the initial land, open for others to browse. Legacies could be read for knowledge, but not instantly mastered. Luo Feng's own Hunyuan Dao of the Blade emphasized destruction. Jin's Primal Destruction Way did as well, but their wills and paths diverged. When Jin first became a lord, he had been enthusiastic toward Luo Feng, but later he drew back upon sensing Luo Feng's hostility to calamity-type cultivators and ceased proposing joint ventures into the abyss of destruction. Luo Feng, I saw the legacy you placed in the initial land, Yuan transmitted with a smile. Once the territory is fully recovered, I will study it thoroughly. I've been busy refining the Blood Crane territory and only recently finished the legacy, Luo Feng replied. By the way, Elder Brother Yuan, have you already gone to negotiate with the Ice Peak camp? I am on my way to the Ice Peak camp now, Yuan transmitted. Luo Feng nodded inwardly. He hoped the negotiations would succeed and that the remaining clusters could be reclaimed without another costly war. Chapter 402, Negotiation. When Yuan arrived in the fallen territory and took in the scene, his expression turned cold. Across his long life, he had always sacrificed for the cultivator camp. Among the lords, he had done the most to nurture junior cultivators. Now he saw over 100 world clusters pillaged and many source world origins consumed. How could he be anything but angry? The Ice Peak camp and the Heavenly Origin camp were essentially the same in this regard. Both were skyborn mixed source forces that needed to plunder vast resources. Many among them loved feasting on source world origins. At the top of the Ice Peak camp stood 12 undying beings, some of whom occasionally tasted those origins themselves. Beyond those 12, progenitors who hadn't yet reached undying rank were even more eager to devour source world origin. The Heavenly Origin camp was their greatest enemy, and Ice Peak had serious friction with the Cultivator camp as well. As entities born from the source world, they had an irreconcilable conflict with any life that fed on source world origins. Only by growing strong enough, Yuan thought, could his camp make other forces think twice about touching the source world. Now that the 8th Lord, Luo Feng, had been born, a lord who smashed through laws by sheer force, and with a 9th Lord bound to appear in time, the cultivator camp would only grow stronger. Suppressing his anger, Yuan followed his senses straight to an ancestor-level being within the fallen territory. Wherever he passed, the rules bent to his movement. Each step crossed almost infinite distances, and in an instant he arrived. Brother Yuan, you've arrived. A warm voice greeted him. A majestic black figure stepped forward with enthusiasm. Covered in black scales, a single eye burning red like coals, fierce in appearance, yet smiling broadly. Ancestor Wu Gu, one of the 12 Undying of the Ice Peak camp, ranked among the top 5 there. Placed against the entire infinite mixed origin space, he would be among the top 30, comparable to the Lotus Hell Mountain Master. I've come to discuss your occupation of over 100 world clusters, Yuan said coldly. We're supposed to be allies, yet you've seized our territory. Is that how allies behave? Don't be hasty, Ancestor Wu Gu replied. Ice Peak Ancestor already knew you were coming and has convened the highest council. The Ice Peak avatars will descend shortly. Inside a vast, imposing palace, Wu Gu and Yuan waited. In moments, 11 figures appeared, the avatars of the other 11 undying beings of the Ice Peak camp. Their presence made it clear how seriously Ice Peak treated the cultivator camp. Brother Yuan, a deep, steady voice intoned. A towering figure of deep blue ice filled the space like a living iceberg. Ice Peak Ancestor's avatar still radiated immense power. His indestructible body and boundless mastery of cold made him a force comparable to Yuan. Yuan inclined his head. Ice Peak Ancestor had lived far longer than him. The two had once been close. Back when the cultivator camp had only one lord, Ice Peak Ancestor had founded his camp and invited Yuan to join. Yuan had refused, but their friendship survived. As the cultivator camp grew, however, their relationship had grown strained. Yuan greeted the other undying individually, then fixed his gaze on a gray-robed woman. Sister Shazhou, he said, feeling a complex tug in his chest. Long time no see. Shazhou nodded slightly. For a long stretch, she had been regarded as the strongest being in the infinite mixed origin space, aloof, solitary, with very few friends. Her closest were Ice Peak Ancestor, and after him, Yuan. When Ice Peak Ancestor formed his camp, he had persuaded her to join, and her membership had made the camp's deterrent power terrifying. Later, Starlight Lord had appeared, mastering 2 primordial, origin-level Daos. Many now thought Starlight and Shazhou occupied the top 2 positions in the space. Yuan turned back to business. Our cultivator camp and the Ice Peak camp have always been allies. During our war with the Heavenly Origin camp, you took advantage and seized more than 100 world clusters. Sister Shazhou, how do you suggest we resolve this? Talk to Ice Peak about it, Shazhou said coolly. She clearly did not care much about this dispute. Ice Peak Ancestor took Yuan's hand and sat beside him. You know Sister Shazhou's temperament. She wouldn't be interested in these piles of resources. Our camp is loosely organized. There are many elements I can't fully control. I ordered them to stop as soon as I learned of the occupation, but making them return those world clusters is difficult. Yuan understood. The Ice Peak Camp's 12 Undying each pursued their own agendas. Shazhou, by contrast, cared little for resources and cared more for Ice Peak Ancestor. For his friend, Ice Peak would go to any lengths. 600 world clusters, Yuan said, sweeping his gaze through the hall. Our cultivator territory cannot lose a single one. We've already reclaimed all other fallen territories. Only these 100+ world clusters remain under your control. Our lords will use the space-time net to hunt down anyone hiding within our territory. You wouldn't dare! 3 identical figures rose simultaneously, glaring at Yuan. You'd actually attack us? You've expanded your own territory so much, so what if we take 100? They sneered. These 3 were the Wind and Thunder C3 Emperors, identical in appearance and temperament, fond of raiding and occupying territory. Nearly half of the disputed world clusters were their doing. If not for Ice Peak's prestige, would you 3 thieves have dared invade? Yuan sneered back. He despised them. Weak even among progenitors, their undying status and the backing of Ice Peak made them reckless. He even taunted them with an old injury. Don't forget, Mo-Man once annihilated all 3 of you. They flushed with rage. Mo-Man had indeed once, in fury, destroyed their bodies and seized their weapons and treasures. No matter how many times they were destroyed, they regenerated, but Yuan's contempt remained. Wu Gu tried to smooth matters. It's only 100+ world clusters. Why damage our friendship over this? You're the ones damaging the friendship, Yuan said coldly. Return them, now. The 12 Undying exchanged looks. Aside from a few weak troublemakers like the 3 Emperors, there were truly powerful figures among them. Ice Peak Ancestor sighed and tried a compromise. Yuan, our greatest enemy is the Heavenly Origin Camp. Our camps both need similar resources. The Ice Peak Camp is disunified. I can't always force everyone's hand. Be reasonable. We can return more than half of the world clusters. Let us keep 60 to appease internal factions. The other Undying watched Yuan. He stood and swept them with a hard gaze. Our territory cannot lose a single world cluster, he declared. If you insist on occupying them, the Cultivator Camp will formally declare war on you. Faces hardened. A war? Ice Peak Ancestor warned quietly. Brother Yuan, think carefully. Call me Yuan, Yuan replied. Those who invade our territory are not fit to be called my brothers. Ice Peak Ancestor's expression chilled. I've already made concessions. If your cultivator camp chooses war, are we undying beings supposed to be afraid? Very well. Yuan nodded once, then issued a final warning. If war starts, the battlefield will not be limited to this fallen territory. Every territory of the Ice Peak camp will be a target for the cultivator camp. If you invade us, be prepared to be invaded in return. A ripple of shock went through the hall. Counter-invasion? Would Ice Peak be afraid of the conflict spreading? Some of the Undying cared little for the lives of lower beings. Ice Peak Ancestor sneered, but did not reply. Yuan's gaze swept the assembled Undying. Then, without another word, he stepped away and vanished. Silence fell. Each of the 12 contemplated the sudden escalation. Ice Peak Ancestor stared into the emptiness where Yuan had stood and spoke in a low voice. This is your decision, he said to the assembly. You insisted on keeping those 60 world clusters, the ones most critical for resources. The result is clear. Yuan and the 8 lords of the cultivator camp are going to war with us. Chapter 403, The 8 Lords. The cultivator territory of the Mingyu world cluster was the absolute domain of Lord Minghuang. Order across the entire world cluster moved to her will. In her realm, there was no place for sin to hide. The core sanctum, the Minghuang sacred land, drew cultivators from across the cluster. To enter the sacred land, 2 things were required: strength and merit. If one's merit was lacking, their strength had to be extraordinary. If one's merit was outstanding, even modest strength could win an audience with the Great Lord. But those entangled in sin, no matter how strong, would be punished and denied the Lord's guidance. Limitless lightning illuminated the sacred land. Within its bounds, cultivators were orderly and solemn. In the Lord's residence, sin could not exist. Today the topic was Fu Tianyi. The cultivator Fu Tianyi, half Hunyuan Dao comprehension, to break free from the cage he cultivated by consuming billions of souls. Over the last 320 million eras, he has fed on more than 100 trillion living beings. His crimes are grave. I recommend the death penalty. The death penalty must be carried out by a world-level Hunyuan life personally. I don't think execution is necessary. Punish him with limitless wind torture. It will serve as punishment and provide forced labor in the wind torture land. The wind torture land was a mine in the limitless primal space, an environment where life trapped in the cage could not normally survive. A barrier formation prevented Hunyuan power from eroding the site, but the natural winds within the mine would shred a half Hunyuan cultivator as if cutting them to pieces while they were forced to keep mining. The sentence was eternal. Only by somehow breaking free from the cage could a convict hope for change. For those half Hunyuan cultivators, endless torture offered a slim chance of eventual freedom. Death offered none. With sins like his, he does not deserve to live. I recommend execution. I also recommend death. Great sin deserves death. No chance of survival. Fu Tianyi shows talent. Limitless wind torture would be sufficient. If he never breaks the cage, he will never rise again. Voices argued back and forth. Among the 9, 3 recommend wind torture, 6 recommend death. Final judgment, death penalty, reported immediately. In Luo Feng's domain, it was Deputy Palace Master Xingjie who handled affairs and led high-level origin life. In Minghuang's domain, a world-level Hunyuan led and enforced the law. When the verdict was given, the world-level Hunyuan glanced at a weapon that had been sent up, a weapon once used by Fu Tianyi. A lord could strike with a thought, using karma to contaminate memories and shatter a junior's soul, even with the source world origin trying to block it. A world-level Hunyuan required an item to deliver a karmic attack, but if memory pollution from a high-level origin life could be endured by someone in the cage, the pollution from a world-level Hunyuan, no matter how slight, would kill a half Hunyuan soul unless it broke free. The Hunyuan life used the weapon's karmic imprint to scan Fu Tianyi hiding in his source world. One look transmitted memory pollution. Fu Tianyi, already terrified, clutched his head in agony. In a few breaths, his soul contorted and collapsed, completely annihilated. Beside a vast lake within the sacred land stood the wooden house where Minghuang lived in seclusion. She set the rules. Her subordinates acted accordingly. Within her absolute domain, punishments varied by severity, but it was rare for a world-level Hunyuan to personally execute anyone. Laws kept most in line. My Hunyuan Dao of thunder is 8 parts thunder, 2 parts water, Minghuang muttered to herself. If Xingmang can comprehend a second Hunyuan Dao, why can't I? Those who rose to be lords were proud. Minghuang pictured constructing a Hunyuan Dao centered on water. It felt awkward. Her temperament leaned against such fluid subtlety, but she persisted. Even slow progress was progress. As long as she avoided a bottleneck, hope remained. Aside from Xingmang, every lord was trying to broaden their power. Yuan and Naigu saw promise. Wulan, Jin, Moman, and Minghuang strove to create a second Hunyuan Dao, though success was slow. One's first Hunyuan Dao matched their nature best, a second rarely did. Luo Feng's nature valued life. His mixed origin life extinguishment Dao, life as its core, let him cultivate smoothly, even breaking through by force. The Hunyuan Dao of the blade, centered on destruction, suited him less. Though Luo Feng grasped destruction deeply, his compatibility with the blade Dao was lower. Even with lord-level insight and rapid comprehension, forming a complete Hunyuan blade Dao was difficult. For him it was a slower process, but possible. For Minghuang, Jin, and others, the second Dao could stall at any time. Negotiations have failed. Prepare for war with the Ice Peak camp, came Yuan's voice. War? Minghuang's eyes crackled with golden lightning. Compared to the grind of comprehension, battle was easier. Her fighting spirit flared. Jin sat on his throne, 12 silver-white horns like a crown above his head. His sharp fingers tapped the armrest. A cup of crimson wine rested in his other hand. His scaled tail swung lazily. In his domain, countless races fought to the death. This is the charm of life, he said. Under the threat of death, life blooms most brilliantly. Too much peace breeds the useless. I thought Luo Feng understood me best. He cultivates the life-extinguishing Tao, Jin mused. Yet he so hates calamity-type cultivators. Jin admired calamity-type cultivators, those who by sheer force could reduce a source world to perpetual calamity and become its undying scourge. To be able to do that showed unparalleled ability, the harshest distillation of the law of the jungle. Moman agreed in principle, if not in admiration. Since our temperaments don't match, let's keep our distance, Jin said, part pride, part indifference. Negotiations failed. Prepare for war with the Ice Peak camp, Yuan repeated. Ha! Time to go! Jin grinned and vanished. Wulan, transformed into a massive celestial body, laughed and crossed space in an instant. He feared no battle. Naigu, his vast continent of flesh and bone coalesced into his lordly form, rejoiced at the prospect of pursuing progenitors. Every progenitor corpse was nourishment. Ripples spread through the limitless primal space. Even skyborn mixed source races felt the surge. The souls of countless beings, their excitement and rage, melded into Hunyuan-level fluctuations that even some progenitors would struggle to detect. Somewhat interesting, Moman said, as innumerable fluctuations burst and then dissipated. By channeling the absorption speed of his home source world origin, in a few breaths his power returned to peak. Normally he dispersed as countless fluctuations across the space. Only on special occasions did he converge to his main combat avatar. Ice Peak Camp? His eyes brightened. I'm already on my way. Xingmang had watched the negotiations closely. He had predicted the Ice Peak Camp's reactions earlier than Yuan and set out already. In his own origin continent source world, Luo Feng had been in seclusion, early in his Blade Dao comprehension's accumulation phase when Yuan's summons reached him. He opened his eyes in the blood-red robes and left his source world in an instant. Yuan chose a meeting point carefully, near Wulan, the slowest to arrive. Though the lords arrived at different times, the gaps were small. When Yuan surveyed the gathered figures, Jin, Wulan, Minghuang, Naigu, Xingmang, Moman, and Luo Feng, fighting spirit burned in all of them. At the prior council hall meeting, the 8 lords had agreed on a course. First, settle the weaker forces, then negotiate with the Ice Peak camp. If negotiations failed, they would go to war. The 3,600 world clusters would not tolerate invasion. Xingmang, do you think the Ice Peak camp dares to go to war with us? Jin asked. They are not as united as we are, Xingmang replied. Faced with a group of undying existences, even Ice Peak ancestors' rule has limits. If the 8 lords threaten them together, their internal structure will unravel. As for whether they will choose war, Xingmang looked out into the distance. Hard to say. Then let's see how strong they are, Naigu said coldly. Depart, Yuan ordered. Whoosh! The 8 lords left together, their combined main combat avatars sweeping toward the fallen territories. The cultivator camp usually kept to its own affairs. 2 or 3 lords acting together was rare. 8 lords marching in unity drew the attention of every force in the infinite mixed origin space. The cultivator camp, the 8 lords have mobilized. Are they going to war with the Ice Peak camp? Remote observers stirred with excitement and fear. Individually, the 8 were mighty. Together, they made weaker forces shudder. Wars between the 3 great camps burned the fiercest across the infinite mixed origin space. In conflicts of this scale, even progenitors stood at greatest risk of falling. Chapter 404, Ice Peak Camp's Decision. Let the war begin. It'll be thrilling once it starts. I bet the cultivator camp will lose the first clash, but in the long run, the Ice Peak camp won't hold. Haha, imagine the cultivator territory's 3,600 world clusters reduced to ruins. If that happens, the 8 lords will have nothing to worry about. That would be terrifying. That's the fun of it. In the Eternal Land, a crowd of onlookers gathered, welcoming the chaos. Besides the 8 lords of the cultivator side and the 12 undying of the Ice Peak camp, other powerful figures had avatars there too. The Heavenly Origin camp's infinite serpent ancestor, Emberfire ancestor, and mother of space-time. 5 beings had not joined any faction: Mogus, Kafu Shu, Yu Huang, Devil Ruins, and Hermit. 4 of those 5 ranked among the top 10 strongest in the infinite mixed origin space. Hermit's strength was unknown, and his true body had never been found. They lived free of factional ties. The more intense the fight, the better. Kafu Shu said, clad in white battle armor, laughing. Infinite Great Snake, your heavenly origin camp and the cultivator camp fought for so long before. Many progenitors died. If the Ice Peak camp moves against the cultivator camp on a large scale, a few progenitors will probably die again. The Infinite Serpent Ancestor answered calmly. After life and death trials, strength can increase. Those who died were only those whose strength wasn't enough. Unlike the undying lords of the cultivator side, most of the heavenly origin camp's hundreds of progenitors were still mortal, subject to death. Under the threat of mortality, they had fought many battles against the cultivator camp. Survivors often gained something from these trials, though it took time to assimilate. There are too many progenitors, said Mogus, his aura frigid. Those weak ones should be eliminated. The Ice Peak camp has 26 ordinary progenitors. Some should die. Kafu Shu, if I recall, over 95% of your power has been extinguished, hasn't it? Kafu Shu teased. Can you defeat Xing Mang? Mogus smiled. I can't beat him, but he can't touch me either. Kafu Shu shook his head. You bully the weak, but before Xing Mang, you're defenseless. Mogus snorted and fell silent. Nearby, the cuboid devil ruins sat beside the spherical initial progenitor, old acquaintances. Initial, Devil Ruins said, I heard you recently visited the Wall of Fire Hell. There were many mysterious places in the infinite mixed origin space, varying wildly in nature and danger. One such place was the Wall of Fire Hell, an endless, majestic wall nearly 100 world clusters long and roughly a world cluster wide, one of the largest of all mysterious places. Over 99% of progenitors who touched it were incinerated to ash. Wu Lan had once visited and been gravely injured, forced to retreat. Only the initial progenitor was known to traverse it. We went there at the request of Emberfire, Shizhou, and a few old friends, Initial replied. We traversed the Wall of Fire Hell, but we still couldn't detect its source world origin. If you can't sense it, there's nothing to refine, Kafu said. Emberfire Ancestor added, we found 12 distinct highest-grade flame types there. The flames were varied and deadly. Ice flames that could freeze progenitors, scorch flames that incinerated everything, lightning flames that shattered, ash flames that annihilated. Often several types overlapped at once. Only Initial could pass through it. If the Wall of Fire Hell has a source world origin, it must contain at least 12 top-level powers, the Infinite Serpent Ancestor observed. To refine it would require mastering nearly half of those top-level powers. All beings in the infinite mixed origin space can master at most 2 types of highest-level power, Emberfire said, so the Wall of Fire Hell can't be refined. Any progenitor skilled in flame coveted such a place. Control of it would be a tremendous leap in power. Emberfire, now one of the 9 emperors, was slightly weaker than the Infinite Serpent Ancestor. If he could control that wall, he might surpass him. But places like the Wall of Fire Hell, the Eternal Land, and the Abyss of Destruction offered no hope of refinement. Inside the colossal palace of the Ice Peak camp, Ice Peak Ancestor and the other 12 beings gathered. A massive figure pointed, and the image of the cultivator 8 lords approaching materialized midair. The 8 lords of the cultivator side are coming, he intoned. Their intent is clear. If we attempt to seize those world clusters by force, they will start a war. The stone-bodied figure, Shu Sai Wei, declared, I, Shu Sai Wei, have not invaded a single world cluster of the cultivator territory, nor taken any resources. Whether you choose to go to war or not, I will not participate. Shu Sai Wei, the Wind and Thunder Sea 3 emperors snapped back. We are 12. Once the collective decides, you must partake. Ugu Progenitor added angrily. He was the only one whose true body was present and had the most at stake. Shu Sai Wei only chuckled. What can you do if I don't? Ice Peak Ancestor watched the bickering with a headache. The Ice Peak camp was formidable. 12 undying plus 26 progenitors, but the undying were hard to control. Even the weakest of them, the Wind and Thunder C3 emperors, were troublemakers. The cultivator camp's 8 lords are roughly our equal, someone argued. We also have 26 progenitors. Once the war begins, we can crush them and grab more territory. We must teach the cultivator camp a lesson, make them know that any alliance with Ice Peak must be on our terms. You fools, another said. When the cultivator camp was weak, they bowed to us. Now they can fight scores of heavenly origin progenitors. Will they still fear us? I did not invade the cultivator territory, Shu Sai-wei repeated. I have no resources. I see no reason to fight them. With that, his figure dispersed. He left? Someone exclaimed. Pu Cheng actually left early? The Wind and Thunder Sea trio fumed. Ice Peak Ancestor considered expelling them, but the 12 had formed an alliance. He needed a solid reason to break it apart. Pu Cheng left, Ice Peak Ancestor said, scanning the hall. His stance is clear. He won't fight. What does everyone think? I won't participate either, Shu Sai-wei declared. The Ice Peak camp, like the Heavenly Origin camp, needs resources to grow our life cores. The cultivators don't care about resources the way we do. Why provoke a fight just to seize world clusters? Xiaozhou, the gray-clothed woman who had been silent, finally spoke. This war is meaningless. I will not participate. The hall fell silent. Xiaozhou and Starlight Lord were ranked among the very strongest in the infinite mixed origin space. If Xiaozhou, Pu Cheng, and Shu Sai-wei all refused to join, the war could be lost before it began. Since Pu Cheng, Shu Sai-wei, and Xiaozhou aren't participating, I don't think this war is assured, Ice Peak Ancestor said. All occupied world clusters will be returned to the cultivator camp. Any objections? No one spoke up. They backed down, one of the onlookers murmured. As Luo Feng and the others traveled, Starlight Lord suddenly spoke. They backed down? Yuan brightened. The lords truly cared for the countless beings in their territories. More than half of the Ice Peak camp's 12 Undying were warlike and indifferent to lower lives. Only a few, like Shu Sai-wei and Pu Cheng, cared about their clans and feared a full-scale war would harm them. When we negotiate with Ice Peak Ancestor later, follow my lead, Starlight Lord instructed, peering into countless possible futures and choosing a path with high certainty. Understood, Yuan replied. Half a day later, led by Starlight Lord, the 8 lords arrived at the border of the reclaimed territory. From the Ice Peak camp, 6 figures appeared, Ice Peak Ancestor and 5 others to receive them. Brother Yuan, don't be angry, Ice Peak Ancestor greeted with a smile. Your threat to start a war helped me unify opinions internally. What opinions? Yuan asked. To return the occupied territory, Ice Peak Ancestor said. There's no need for our sides to go to war. Return it? Yuan's eyes were cold. I've checked. Your camp plundered and even devoured many source world origins. Do you think returning the land is enough? Ice Peak Ancestor's expression hardened slightly. He had backed down partly through subtle influence, but he was proud. What do you want? He asked. I don't need much compensation, Yuan said. Return all resources plundered from the cultivator territory, and this matter will be dropped. If you don't, I will go and plunder back double. Ice Peak Ancestor nodded without emotion. I agree. Around them, Ugu Progenitor and the Wind and Thunder Sea 3 emperors grew anxious. Those among them had plundered the most. I said I agreed, Ice Peak Ancestor repeated. If anyone refuses, go and negotiate with the cultivator camp yourselves. Faced with the 8 lords, Ugu Progenitor and the trio could only swallow their pride. They could not stand alone against the cultivator forces. Brother Yuan, Ice Peak Ancestor said with a slight smile, your cultivator camp is different now. Their attitude toward Ice Peak Ancestor had changed, far less deferential than before. I also have to answer to the other 7 lords, Yuan said. Both men understood that much had changed between their factions. Soon, the Ice Peak camp departed. Ugu Progenitor and the Wind and Thunder Sea, 3 emperors would have to return all plundered resources within a short time. Merely forcing them to return our territory in the plunder is already lenient, Jin said coldly. By my temper, for everything they plundered, we should counter-plunder tenfold. Our strength isn't sufficient, Xingmang replied. Forcing them to return the goods is the best we can do now. If we demand more, Ice Peak's arrogance will trigger war, and once that happens, Xiaozhou will surely join. Luo Feng, new to his rank as a lord and with little direct experience of the Ice Peak camp, watched quietly. No matter what, the cultivator territory's 3,600 world clusters have all been recovered, Yuan said with a smile, looking at Luo Feng. Good thing you just broke through to lordhood, Luo Feng. Who knows what would have happened otherwise? The other lords were in a good mood. Only now could the crisis be called a complete victory. Chapter 405. New Members of the Eternal Land. The cultivator territory had been completely restored, and the 8 lords could finally relax. Xingmang, those damaged space-time nets will need to be rebuilt by you, Yuan instructed. Destroying them is simple. Repairing them is much more troublesome, Starlight Lord said with a rare hint of helplessness. Fixing all the damaged nets will take at least 1,000 epochs of work. When they had first chosen to expand their territory, the cultivator side had selected the most densely populated 3,600 world clusters, precisely because some clusters lay so far away that setting up the space-time net there was vastly more difficult. Even if Xingmang only had to repair a few hundred clusters now, it would still be a monumental task. Brother Xingmang, you've worked hard. Call on us if you need help, Luo Feng offered. Repairing the nets mostly requires special materials, Wulan said with a smile from the side. Xingmang is far wealthier than you, Luo Feng. He doesn't need your help. Xingmang shook his head. Actually, I have an important matter that will need Luo Feng's help. Oh, Luo Feng's curiosity was piqued. I'll tell you once everything is ready, Xingmang said with a small smile. As the being with the deepest comprehension of space-time in the infinite mixed origin space, he knew his own problems well, problems the other lords couldn't fix. Perhaps Luo Feng, who had mastered 2 primordial origin Daos, could help. In the future, Xingmang had observed Luo Feng would gain immense frontal combat power by mastering the Daos of creation and destruction. Okay, call on me anytime, Luo Feng replied. He greatly admired Xingmang. Xingmang's contributions to the entire cultivator camp had been massive. If Xingmang asked, he would gladly help. Jin, standing nearby, watched silently. He and Luo Feng made an excellent team. With Luo Feng present, Jin could use risky forbidden techniques as routine. Luo Feng could shield him from many dangers. A faint displeasure lingered in Jin's heart, but he kept it to himself. Luo Feng, if you help Xingmang, you'll have to help me too in future, Momon Lord said with a smile. As long as I have the time, any time is fine, Luo Feng replied. Ming Huang smiled from the side. She now fully understood Luo Feng's character. If she asked, he would help. Jin, Mo Man, and Ming Huang, each of them matched well with Luo Feng. Together, they could achieve synergy where 1 + 1 was greater than 3. Next, let's focus on fully rebuilding the territories that were damaged, Yuan said. All the lords agreed. Portions of their domains had been occupied and scarred during the conflict. The cultivator territory had entered a period of great reconstruction, and the camp finally returned to peace. The Heavenly Origin camp, which had suffered heavy losses, and the Ice Peak camp, recently weakened, dared not offend the cultivator camp again. Weaker factions stayed entirely out of sight. One by one, the 3,600 world clusters returned to their ordinary lives. In one of the source worlds grouped in the Dark World, inside a sealed cave dwelling, a single being lived in isolation. Hold on. I can definitely hold on. A figure curled up there, trembling, his consciousness sinking and clawing through countless illusions. He was Yuan Xiang, the palace master and founder of Yulan City. After leaving Yulan City to Luo Feng, he had dispersed all external avatars and returned to his home source world to resist the contamination with all his might. But as time passed, the memory contamination worsened, and he could no longer reliably feel reality, always struggling through layers of illusion. His will to survive still fought back, unwilling to fall. Emerging from one layer of illusion only to find another, he could no longer tell true from false. Ah! I can't tell reality from illusion, Yuan Xiang moaned in pain. The very fact he could think, I can't tell, meant he wasn't completely lost yet. Brother Yuan Xiang! Brother Yuan Xiang! A voice called. Boom! A powerful force broke through the sealed cave and a figure appeared beside him. I sent messages, but there was no response. He had lost control, even of his own cave dwelling, the newcomer muttered, looking at the twisted, trembling palace master with a shaken head. This man had once guided Yuan Xiang's cultivation path, an existence who had once mastered 2.5 primordial origin Daos. Now his friend could barely spare a thought for the outside world. You are lucky, the blue-clad man said, producing a jade bottle and uncorking it. A drop of crystal-clear dew fell and merged into Yuan Xiang's being. The life dew flowed into his soul, washing away impurities and strengthening it. Yuan Xiang opened his eyes. He stared at the cave and at the blue-clad man with a clarity he hadn't felt in ages. This is reality. For the first time in a long while, Yuanshang was certain. He felt whole, able, even, to exert his full strength. The memory contamination still existed, but his fortified soul could suppress it. "Brother Du Fang, what's going on?" Yuanshang asked, looking up at his friend from their hometown. "The contamination brought by high-level origin life can only be fought if your mind and will break free from the cage. How did you suddenly recover and feel your soul strengthened?" Yuanshang wondered aloud. "This is a drop of life dew given by the great Lord Luo Feng," Du Fang said with a smile. "He told me to bring it to you. It transforms and strengthens the soul and can naturally suppress the contamination." For a lord, there were many ways to resolve memory contamination caused by high-level origin life. For one in Yuanshang's position, a single drop of soul-nourishing life dew was enough. Lord Luo Feng also said that if you want the contamination completely erased, you may come to the Dark World group to see him. He will personally remove the memory contamination hidden within your soul, Du Fang added. He also said that after your soul strengthens, this contamination will no longer harm you. It can even temper you. Yuanshang listened in stunned silence. Lord Luo Feng? Since returning to his home source world and sealing himself off, he had been unaware of developments outside. Just recently, the cultivator camp gained a new great lord, Lord Luo Feng, Du Fang said proudly. Luo Feng, along with Yuan, Jin, the other lords, utterly defeated the Heavenly Origin camp. We won this war. The Dark World group, Luo Feng's home, has flourished. The current Dark Sacred World is far more prosperous than before. Lord Luo Feng's true body resides there. For a long time, thousands of high-level origin life have served him, and even world-level Hunyuan existences visit him often. Yuanshang was utterly bewildered. That talented young junior who had resolved the catastrophe of Yulan City, Luo Feng, had become a lord? Yuanshang knew what lords were, the highest beings in the infinite mixed origin space. Progenitors were mighty but could fall. Lords were truly eternal. Luo Feng became a lord? Yuanshang recalled the first time he met Luo Feng. He had believed Luo Feng had great potential, greater even than Palace Masters Wei Yang and Gai Tao, and had once given him 50 billion Hunyuan crystals. Later gift of Yulan City had come because Luo Feng saved the city. The real favor had been those 50 billion crystals. For the once poor Luo Feng, they had been a huge help. After all that, Yuanshang felt his kindness had been repaid 100-fold. Lord Luo Feng said you can visit him in the Dark Sacred World anytime, Du Fang said, his voice full of envy. For a weak cultivator trapped within a cage, the chance to see a lord's true body was almost unheard of. I understand. Yuanshang felt a swell of gratitude. A favor to a lord, when the lord had once been weak, had returned to him far beyond what he had expected. Dark World Group. Luo Feng looked into the distance. His gaze pierced countless barriers and alighted on Yuanshang in that moment. Along his journey, he remembered everyone who had ever shown him kindness. It's time to go to the Eternal Land. A thought stirred in Luo Feng, and far off, in a space closer to the Eternal Land, that thought condensed into an avatar. If this were for battle, he would have sent his main combat avatar. An avatar absorbs energy too slowly, and restoring it to full strength would be less efficient than simply traveling. To attend the Eternal Land, a weaker avatar would suffice. Whoosh! On a floating mountain within a primordial origin void, Luo Feng's avatar formed and began to absorb ambient energy. Being weak, it drew only small amounts at first, but like a snowball it grew, taking in more and more. After roughly 1 Earth day, it had recovered to about 3/10,000ths of his full energy reserves, barely enough to be considered a true avatar, but still capable of sweeping aside all world-level Hunyuan. Only then did Luo Feng head for the Eternal Land. He could not go any other way. The Eternal Land's suppression of outsiders was terrifying. Yet even this fragment of his power was enough. 3/10,000ths of his total energy, given Moman Lord's much smaller reserves, still amounted to roughly 3% of Moman Lord's power, so Luo Feng was confident he would not be suppressed into dust. The spot where he condensed his avatar lay close to the Eternal Land. With the help of the shadow power from the blood-colored robe condensed on his avatar, Luo Feng reached the Eternal Land in an instant. Boom! Standing before the vast, flat expanse, Luo Feng felt the weight of the place. Even with his fragment of power, he felt real pressure. This environment was meant for ancestor-level and lord-level beings. At the center of the flatland stood an ancient round table with 29 seats. Lord Luo Feng has arrived. A strange cube's voice sounded in his ear, warm and welcoming. We prepared a seat for you long ago. You are only just arriving now, Kafushu said with a smile, clad in white battle armor as he looked at Luo Feng. One by one, figures appeared and descended. Once someone had left an imprint on a seat, they could return by thought and were no longer subject to the eternal land's suppression. Soon all 28 other existences materialized. The 7 lords of the Cultivator camp, 4 of the 9 emperors from the Heavenly Origin camp, 12 from the Ice Peak camp, and 5 lone travelers. They all turned their attention to Luo Feng. Luo Feng approached a seat. A wisp of the seat's power flowed through him, and with a single thought he refined the link. The Eternal Land accepted him, and Luo Feng could sense all 28 of those present. Among us, we have another companion, Lord Luo Feng. The strange cube, Devil Ruins, announced in a resonant voice full of joy. In the limitless primal space, only these undying existences could remain the eternal players on the cosmic board. Progenitors might be mighty, but once they fell, all ceased. Only they endured. Today, they welcomed a new companion, Lord Luo Feng. Chapter 406, The Road Ahead. In the Eternal Land, the 29 Undying seldom gathered. Brother Luo Feng, when will you hold your celebration for becoming a lord? Kafushu asked with a smile. It's been too long since I visited your cultivator territory. I could take the chance to look around. The other Undying watched Luo Feng with interest. Almost all of them planned to send clones to the celebration. My mysterious domain, the Blood Crane territory, is currently on its way back to the cultivator territory, Luo Feng replied. The celebration will be held once Blood Crane territory arrives at my homeland. Those who reached Undying by controlling mysterious lands typically celebrated inside those lands, so no one found his plan unusual. The strange cube, known as Devil Ruins, then turned to Xiaozhou. Sister Xiaozhou, would you like to venture into Tonggu land with us? Sure, the gray-robed woman, Xiaozhou, nodded. I can go at any time. We'll set out after this gathering, Devil Ruins said, looking around. Anyone who wants to come can join. Count me in, Infinite Serpent Ancestor added. In the end, 6 Undying volunteered to go into Tonggu land together. Luo Feng listened from the side. He had already learned about many mysterious lands from the initial lands database. Tonggu land was a valley cultivated by the infinite mixed origin space, where various terrifying attacks fell irregularly. To date, only a handful of beings had ever traversed it entirely. The greatest benefit of Tonggu land was exposure to attacks that transcended ordinary life forms, insights that could point the way forward on one's path. Xiaozhou had visited Tonggu land more than anyone else, and several of her ultimate techniques originated from studying those assaults. As he listened, Luo Feng noted the political texture among the 29 Undying in the Eternal Land. 4 major factions, the Heavenly Origin camp, the Cultivator camp, the Ice Peak camp, and an independent faction. The first 3 normally kept to themselves, while proposals from the independents often won broad approval. The 8 lords of the Cultivator camp were different from most. Their progenitors agreed to joint expeditions and treasure hunts, but the Cultivator lords themselves rarely intervened. Cultivator lords primarily relied on enlightenment and only occasionally explored mysterious lands that resonated with them. They already had enough resources to protect the 3,600 world clusters and had no drive for wider territorial plunder. After a voyage spanning 10 full epochs, Blood Crane territory finally arrived at what had been the Dark World Group. The Dark World Group had been renamed the Galaxy World Group, and the Dark Sacred World renamed the Galaxy Sacred World. Every lord renamed their absolute domain as they pleased. Blood Crane territory was vast, home to over 7.5 billion high-level origin lives of the Blood Crane clan. Only a small portion of that clan remained directly under Luo Feng's command. The rest had been dispatched to other lords' territories to work. All 8 lords of the Cultivator camp followed this practice, sharing even personally captured high-level and world-level Hunyuan with the camp. The celebration is finally over. Luo Feng saw off the many guests. At the grand ceremony, the Heavenly Origin Camp had sent Infinite Serpent Ancestor and clones of 6 Emperors, plus 31 ordinary progenitor clones. The Ice Peak Camp sent 21 clones. Numerous weaker factions also dispatched progenitor clones. Altogether, more than 100 progenitor clones attended. The number of progenitor clones present was an indicator of the host's influence in the infinite mixed origin space. When the Wind and Thunder Sea's 3 emperors held a celebration, far fewer beings had shown up. "Let's go," the visitors said. "Brother Luo Feng, there's no need to see us off," some offered. When the other guests left, the 7 other lords of the Cultivator camp departed one by one. Lord Mo Man was the last to remain. He approached Luo Feng. "You promised to help me," he said. "Now?" Luo Feng asked. "I can leave at any time." Mo Man smiled at Luo Feng's promptness. "Not yet. There's a very special mysterious land, a land of waves. Its fluctuations show up once every 100,000 epochs, and the next appearance is still about 5,000 epochs away. When it appears, we'll have to depart immediately." "Okay, no problem," Luo Feng replied. "Thanks." Mo Man took a step and transformed into a ripple of waves, vanishing without a trace. Luo Feng stood amid the limitless blood sea, his blood-colored robes fluttering. Relief washed over him. It was time to seclude himself and diligently comprehend the Hunyuan Dao of the blade. Nearby lay the Origin Continent's source world. Blood Crane territory was close to it. If a future crisis required it, Luo Feng could relocate Blood Crane territory within breaths to the vicinity of the Origin Continent. The limitless Blood Sea could fully protect the Origin Continent's source world. As far as current knowledge went, nothing should threaten his homeland's source world, where he personally presided. But the homeland's source world was tied to the lives of his relatives and friends. As long as the source world existed, he could easily resurrect living beings. If it were gone, resurrection would be impossible. Luo Feng had to ensure his source world's absolute safety. Conflict never ceased in the limitless primal space. The Ice Peak camp, stung by losses to the Cultivator camp, had some progenitors bullying weaker neighboring forces to seize resources. Those weaker forces, unwilling to join a major camp, had backing of their own, so skirmishes were fierce. The Heavenly Origin camp and the Cultivator camp, however, remained relatively quiet after the previous war. The fighting had been brutal. One side had lost 11 progenitors, and the other had lost many territories and seen numerous source worlds destroyed. Both sides were now recuperating. This war was truly worth it. Limitless Ancestor cried out in joy. His true body was a colossal sphere of light containing boundless light. As one of the top 3 strongest in the Heavenly Origin camp, Limitless Ancestor had still not reached undying. He had been a vocal advocate for war. He needed sufficient tempering and resources to advance. After countless years and innumerable obstacles, he finally glimpsed the hope of undying. It had been Luo Feng's Source Great Destruction, the terrifying power that swept the region, that had allowed Limitless Ancestor, in trying to protect his companions, to have his boundless light endure the impact. That energy storm, that blinding radiance, had swept through dozens of progenitors and severely wounded 26 of them. That was the true boundless light, Limitless Ancestor thought. To wield immeasurable power, I must become purer. My life core must fully merge into light, so that it is omnipresent, able to manifest in any wisp of light across the limitless primal space. Only then will I be truly undying. He saw his path clearly and began to absorb the resources he had long accumulated. With supplies fed in and his active guidance of the life core's growth, the core began a slow transformation. The process was fraught with difficulty and obstacles, but the clearer the path ahead, the smoother the core could change. "Where is my path?" sighed Annihilation Ancestor, one of the 9 emperors of the Heavenly Origin camp and also among the camp's top 3. He had searched for a route to undying and found only one faint possibility. To attain undying, he would first have to return to Annihilation, and from that Annihilation seek undying. But that course carried a more than 99% chance of complete death. Annihilation Ancestor was unwilling to gamble on such odds. In strength, he already rivaled a Cultivator Lord. Even the Cultivator Lords together could not easily slay him. He had only a theoretical chance of being killed. How could such an existence risk a path with death so likely? In the cultivator camp's initial land, Yuan was reading the legacy Luo Feng had left behind. Brother Luo Feng's research on the source is among the best in the infinite mixed origin space, Yuan said, elated. The 8 lords were all enlightened, and their research depth generally far exceeded that of progenitors. Luo Feng's mixed origin life extinguishment Tao rested on life, with the source system central to his path. My path needs the source system, Yuan mused, carefully studying the legacy and extracting anything useful. His cultivation of the primal chaos rule operation Tao improved as he comprehended more of the God-King ultimate realm great Taos. The power of this rule operation Tao grew accordingly. But Yuan had failed in an attempt to create a source world. A source world, besides requiring rule operation, demands the combination of many Taos into a single source. Luo Feng's source of creation and destruction is profound, Yuan thought. But to build a source world, I must combine many great Taos into a source. A source world needs at least 9 great Taos to form a source. That's far more complex than Luo Feng's life-centered source. The mixed origin life extinguishment Tao was a fused Tao with many life direction features, so it readily transformed into a source, making it comparatively easy to construct enormous numbers of sources, 108 million sources, for instance. Yuan faced a harder task, to combine at least 9 great Taos into a single source. The more great Taos he pursued, the more complex the source combination system became. Despite the difficulty, Yuan felt joyful. Luo Feng's detailed source system had pointed to a road ahead. If the primal chaos rule operation Tao could successfully incorporate the source system, it would be a true qualitative leap, internal as source, external as rule operation. Only by uniting both sides could a source world truly be formed. At least the path ahead is clear, Yuan thought, and he continued his secluded cultivation. Each of the 8 lords had their own affairs. Xingmang busied himself repairing various space-time nets. Jin once again explored the abyss of destruction alone. Moman continued to wander the limitless primal space as a wave. Wulan cultivated his bloodline descendants at leisure. Luo Feng, within Blood Crane territory, concentrated on comprehending the Hunyuan Dao of the blade. Time slipped by. Unconsciously, 3,000 epochs had passed. Chapter 407, the prototype of the Hunyuan blade. Dao, the blood sea drifted in lonely immensity. In that vast, mysterious expanse, there was only one living presence, Luo Feng. The Blood Crane territory clan that had surrendered had been dispatched to serve the cultivator camp. On the blood sea, a small island had condensed, dotted with rare trees and plants. Luo Feng sat there alone, sipping finely brewed wine. As a lord, he had little need for external comforts. What supplies he kept were mostly for brewing and food. 3,000 epochs, and I'm still stuck at a bottleneck. He paused mid-sip as a ripple of awareness brushed his mind. His gaze pierced through endless space-time to a source world far beyond the cultivator territory. In that world, a being had, by his own effort and without any inherited guidance, broken through to the God-King ultimate realm and ruptured the source world membrane. For a brief time, he hovered outside his world, curious about the infinite mixed origin space. This is what lies beyond my world? The newcomer wondered. In his source world, he had been supreme. Because there was no complete cultivation system there, he alone had reached God-King level. He was the pathfinder of his world. A fluctuation manifested beside him, Lord Moman's presence. "Little one, come with me," Moman said, and the fellow was brought into the cultivator territory. Luo Feng watched from a distance as Moman's presence dispersed into countless ripples throughout the infinite mixed origin space. Outside the cultivator territory, there were many source worlds. When Moman encountered exceptional talent, he would recruit them. Lord Xingmang, who observed past, present, and future, did likewise. Bringing outsiders into the cultivator territory was mainly the work of Moman and Xingmang. That was all the lords could do. They could not protect all source worlds. Luo Feng understood the truth clearly and felt the helplessness in it. The 3D 600 world clusters they guarded were only a tiny patch of the infinite mixed origin space. World clusters were densest here and resources concentrated, so the cultivator camp invested total protection. But across the rest of the infinite mixed origin space, even if clusters were sparse, their accumulated number dwarfed the 3,600 clusters under direct protection. Beyond the cultivator territory, countless source worlds and their inhabitants lived in a waking nightmare. Some worlds were devoured by world-level Hunyuan and even progenitors. Skyborn mixed sources roamed and fed upon whole civilizations. Without the protection of lords, source worlds were prey. Even source world origins could be consumed. If we tried to protect every source world, Luo Feng thought, I'm sure every other power would band together. The Ice Peak Camp, the Heavenly Origin Camp, weaker forces, undying beings, and numerous progenitors would unite to crush the Cultivator Camp. The Lord's strength, however great, was still too small. He looked coldly at the vastness before him. The rules of the infinite mixed origin space were merciless. Lords were strong, but among the millions of beings in countless source worlds, how many could escape the cage? Without escaping, they were helpless against the skyborn mixed sources and world-level Hunyuan. Even with the 8 lords protecting the 3,600 world clusters, war had already come. Luo Feng turned his attention inward. Hunyuan Dao of the Blade, he frowned. In 3,000 epochs, I've completed 90% of the Hunyuan Blade Dao. I have a clear embryonic form, but I've hit a bottleneck. He had advanced many times faster than Wu Lan, Jin, Minghuang, and the others. In a single stretch of 3,000 epochs, a coherent framework had arisen, an embryonic form. Still, something was missing. His Blade Dao was about 87% destruction and 13% life. The small life component provided functions like life energy lock-on, severing life force, and life entanglement. On the destruction side, there was killing intent lock-on. Fusing life's targeting with destruction's killing intent made his enemy locking capacity extremely potent. His Blade Dao centered on locking targets and crushing them with overwhelming destructive methods. The stronger, the better. But the Dao was incomplete. The shortfall lay in his accumulation of the destruction aspect. He had assumed his foundation in destruction was deep enough. He had studied all the high-level Hunyuan materials, world-level and ancestor-level records the Cultivator Camp possessed, and had reviewed the inheritances of the other 7 lords. Jin's legacy leaned heavily on destruction, but Jin's temperament and path didn't match Luo Feng's, so Luo Feng could only extract fragments. He had even comprehended the mixed origin life-extinguishing Dao. At one time, his destruction accumulation had seemed sufficient. Now, focusing on destruction as the core, it was clearly lacking. The sky-rending blade was born from the abyss of destruction. Luo Feng turned the blade in his hand. Across the infinite mixed origin space, no place contained more raw destruction force than the abyss of destruction. The abyss was a mysterious highest-tier region, on par with places like the Eternal Land and the Wall of Fire Hell, places acknowledged by every power, yet inscrutable and untamable. The abyss contained all known and unknown forms of destruction. It functioned as a bottomless chasm. From the outermost first layer, one could push ever deeper, second layer, third layer, and onward. To claim mastery of a layer, a being had to overcome its trials and imprint their life mark on that layer's source phantom. Almost every progenitor in the infinite mixed origin space had explored the abyss. The depth one had reached there was the most accepted measure of true combat strength among ancient beings. Today, the deepest known achiever was Sha Zhou of the Ice Peak Camp, who controlled the 27th layer. Lord Xingmang held the 26th. He was 1 layer behind because Sha Zhou had arrived earlier and occupied the 27th first. Xingmang had attempted to break through to the 27th but could not overcome its obstacles. That parity placed Xingmang and Sha Zhou as the top 2 powers. Slightly below them was Devil Ruins at the 22nd layer. Layers 23 through 25 remained unowned, underscoring the gulf between the top 2 and the rest. From the 22nd down to the first layer, every layer had its master. Among the other lords, Yuan had reached the 19th layer, Mo Man the 13th, Jin the 12th, Minghuang the 11th, Naigu the 9th, and Wulan the 7th. The Abyss rankings explained why Xingmang was publicly counted among the top 2 and why Yuan was seen as top 10. Though this method favored killing ability over survival, some of the most defensively gifted beings, like the initial progenitor, had poor offensive ratings and hadn't even claimed the first layer. Wulan, though slower and clumsier, packed immense power into each move and had won the seventh layer. Luo Feng, newly promoted to Lord, had yet to carve out his place in the abyss. The abyss contains every form of destruction, he repeated to himself. If I want to close this gap in my blade Dao, I must go there. Clad in black with a blood-red robe, Luo Feng lifted the sky-rending blade. He had decided he would travel to the abyss of destruction to deepen his destruction accumulation and break through the bottleneck that stalled his Hunyuan blade Dao. With a measured step, Luo Feng, the main combat avatar, left the Blood Crane territory and set out toward the abyss of destruction. Chapter 4 and 5, the first layer of the abyss of destruction. The space-time of the infinite mixed origin space was profoundly strange. Its structure was not stacked like a 1,000-layer cake, but woven like a multidimensional spiderweb. The initial land hid inside some niche of that web, unknowable to ordinary forces. Shadow power was one of the highest-level forces that lit countless regions of space. Drawing on the shadow mysteries contained in Blood Crane territory, Luo Feng traveled along shadow spatial layers, each step spanning immeasurable distances of space-time. After 55 days of continuous travel, he finally reached the abyss of destruction. The abyss of destruction lay buried deep in the fabric of space-time, so deep that world-level Hunyuan beings found it difficult to perceive. Only those who had attained the ancestor level could use their senses to break deep into space-time and reach it. I'm here, Luo Feng thought, as he moved through overlapping spatial barriers to the vicinity of the abyss. Even its outermost layer sat in the deepest reaches of the web. Each inner layer penetrated even further. Not even Starlight Lord could say where the bottom of the abyss lay. Just looking at it, Luo Feng felt its immovability. This abyss of destruction seemed to embody the infinite mixed origin space itself. Its oppressive aura even surpassed that of the Eternal Land. Compared with it, Blood Crane territory was a pale shadow. Though both were mysterious lands, the difference was like heaven and earth. I'll go to the first layer first, he decided, and forced his way into the first layer of the abyss. The first layer of this destruction world belonged to an ancestor named Bafayu. To hold a layer of a destruction world at all meant he ranked among the top 30 existences in the limitless primal space. Before him, 9 colossal world-level Hunyuan figures knelt in respect. Ancestor, they intoned, I brought you to the abyss of destruction so you could experience and become familiar with destruction force. If you can advance and master this destruction force, you can enter the ancestor level, the gigantic 8-hoofed figure said. 16 multicolored eyes looked down at his clansmen. Our Bafayu clan has only 2 ancestors so far. That's too weak. Those 9 world-level Hunyuan also yearned to break through. I'll arrange for the world messengers of the first layer to spar with you. The messengers will not kill you, Bafayu said. Go, experience this destruction force well. They obeyed. Bafayu had just sent a world messenger to spar with them when he sensed an intrusion. He peered outward and saw a black-haired man in a blood-red robe forcing his way into the first layer. Is that Luo Feng? Bafayu recognized him instantly. His 16 eyes narrowed, wary though not afraid. Ancestors who mastered highest-level powers evolved their life cores to extreme resilience and had terrifying vitality. Even in the great battles between camps, ancestors were nearly impossible to kill without multiple masters cooperating. Bafayu, ranked among the top 30 and not affiliated with any major camp, had confidence in his own defenses. Lord Luo Feng. Bafayu boomed as Luo Feng entered. This layer of the destruction world was vast, several times the size of a source world, suffused with a destruction force that sought to rend everything. Because Bafayu owned this layer, the latent destruction force did not erupt without control. Bafayu, Luo Feng acknowledged. Bafayu wielded a highest-level power called multidimensional divine light, terribly destructive, excellent at binding and imprisoning with 16-colored light, and superb at escape. His escape ability exceeded even the Shadow Lord of Blood Crane territory. Do you intend to occupy my first layer of the destruction world? Bafayu asked solemnly. If you wish, I can yield it to you. He knew his limits. Luo Feng had already forced through the combined spatial obstructions of 3 lords of Blood Crane territory and refined Blood Crane territory itself. He could overcome Bafayu's barriers and leave a life imprint on the source shadow of the layer if he wanted. I won't occupy this layer, Luo Feng said, but mobilize all world messengers and attack me. I want to feel the power of this destruction world. Bafayu's whiskers twitched and he smiled. That was exactly what he had hoped. Among the 7 lords of the cultivators, those who mastered Hunyuan Dao were fearsome. Luo Feng could well be testing the first layer out of curiosity. Very well, Bafayu agreed. I will mobilize all world messengers. Be careful. The 9 world-level Hunyuan who had been teasing their sparring partner noticed Luo Feng's arrival. They murmured with curiosity and respect. Then, as Bafayu finished, the world messengers, those undying carriers formed from a layer's destruction force, converged. The first layer could call up 3,000 world messengers. Dense ranks of light swarmed in, besieging Luo Feng. The 9 watched in astonishment as Luo Feng stood like an unshakable mountain in the onslaught. His blood-red robe fluttered, warding off strikes. Every casual counterstrike from him could obliterate several world messengers at once. But those messengers condensed and reappeared from nothingness. They were unkillable in the conventional sense. Luo Feng held the sky-rending blade. With a single swing, blade light flashed and several messengers were cleaved to rays of light, only to be reborn from the layer's power. World messengers each carried only a fragment of the first layer's destruction force, but in combination, 3,000 of them were formidable. This was the barrier one had to break through to leave an imprint on the source shadow of a destruction layer. To challenge it required strength on par with Bafayu himself. Even Xing Mang had failed to clear all the messenger obstructions in the 28th layer. The messengers attacked from all directions, assaulting Luo Feng's robe, cutting surface protections, and even erupting within his body. His blood sea-hardened physique absorbed most of the damage. Some attacks caused minor surface wounds, others produced deeper effects. Luo Feng observed closely. The messenger's combined method was what he called severance power, the highest level destruction force that could sever everything. One black light, a messenger's embodiment, appeared inside him, and before it touched flesh, his tissue began to part and rend. Different messengers fused destruction with other profound mysteries: life, matter, immeasurable, flame, space, and more. This was richer than he had imagined. The severance power did more than simple cutting. It severed life, broke natural continuities, and dissolved things from the inside out. Luo Feng analyzed, mentally stripping away his blood robe to sense the assaults more clearly with his body. He judged that Severnay's power in this layer was roughly 80% destruction and perhaps 2% life, blended with other paths. Because his accumulations were already deep, he felt he could master this severance power with time. His Hunyuan Dao of the blade had already formed in embryo. Creating a Dao was difficult, but mastering a highest level power corresponding to that Dao was comparatively easier. In the infinite mixed origin space, a cultivator lord who mastered a Hunyuan Dao could often master several highest level powers of that Dao. However, different types of power provided more potent synergy than multiple powers of the same source. Space plus time, for example, led to a qualitative change. Luo Feng pursued life and destruction. Once he mastered the highest level destruction force, severance power, it would significantly aid his comprehension of the Hunyuan Dao of the blade. The difficulty ahead did not seem insurmountable. It felt easier than the bottleneck of his Dao itself. He settled into focused contemplation, beginning the long, careful work of understanding and absorbing the severance power. Chapter 409, Weapons of Destruction. Luo Feng lingered on the first level of the Abyss of Destruction for more than an epoch. During that time, 3,000 world messengers assaulted him relentlessly, and Luo Feng used every encounter to carefully study the forms of destruction force each messenger wielded. It's enough. I've thoroughly investigated the powers of these 3,000 world messengers. There's no reason to stay any longer, Luo Feng decided. He looked into the distance and called out, "Progenitor Bafayu, thank you for your help. I'm going to the next level." The destruction world. Bafayu, who had been watching silently, exhaled in relief and immediately withdrew the world messengers with a thought. Luo Feng inclined his head in acknowledgement and then broke through the spatio-temporal barrier toward the second level. He finally left. Bafayu relaxed. As long as Luo Feng remained there, he had feared the Cultivator Lord would seize and hold the level permanently. Bafayu's faction was too weak to offend the Cultivator camp, and the 9 Hunyuan-level ancestors of his race had been itching for a chance to spar. For more than an epoch, they'd had no world messengers to test. Bafayu arranged for a world messenger to be with them and told his people to continue their cultivation. The second level of the Abyss of Destruction belonged to the primal Chaos Beast ancestor, one of the 9 emperors of the Heavenly Origin camp. He appeared as a massive beast with fat, endlessly colorful fur, each strand of that fur containing unimaginable wonders and boundless space. His body was itself a domain, and he had claimed the level by domain mastery rather than raw combat power. Cultivator Lord Luo Feng? The primal Chaos Beast ancestor asked, watching him with obvious caution. He had felt the explosive might of Luo Feng's Source Great Destruction before. Paired with the Black Tide ancestor and the giant god emperor, he had once been nearly invincible, but alone he judged himself inferior to most cultivator lords. I don't intend to contest this level, Luo Feng said. I ask the primal Chaos Beast ancestor to have all the world messengers of this level attack me at full strength. The primal Chaos Beast ancestor hesitated inwardly, but nodded on the surface. With a thought, 1,800 black-furred messengers appeared. They were fierce and heavily built, and they encircled Luo Feng and struck. Luo Feng's blood-colored robes fluttered as he took those attacks, deducing their nature with precise attention. The destruction force here is severance power, about 80% pure destruction and 20% matter. Luo Feng judged quickly. He had a deep foundation in Destruction Dao and recognized the composition. It wasn't ideal for him to master outright, but it offered profound insights he could incorporate. Luo Feng engaged the messengers, deliberately taking hits with his body to better comprehend the force. When he casually slashed down and killed one messenger, a subtle fluctuation rippled through a hidden spatio-temporal seam. A gray weapon dropped from nowhere. Luo Feng's eyes brightened. He reached out and seized it. It was a gray, long shuttle, compact, sleek, and radiating intense destructive energy. Luo Feng smiled. His intelligence had warned him that while passing through the Abyss of Destruction, lords occasionally obtained destruction weapons. The 7 lords each had collected a number. Some had 5 or 6. Lord Qingmang had gathered more than 20. These weapons were usually of broad utility, but rarely perfectly suited to a cultivator lord. So many were placed in the initial land for exchange by younger disciples. During the Desperate War, the exchange privileges had been temporarily opened, allowing those like Luo Feng, still trapped by the cage, to hope for a sky-rending blade exchange. Many treasures offered at that time were no less valuable than the sky-rending blade. These destruction weapons help in general ways, Luo Feng thought, slipping the long shuttle away. It was comparable in caliber to the sky-rending blade, but Luo Feng favored blade techniques himself. Ultimate artifacts that could dramatically boost a cultivator lord's power were far rarer and too precious to expect casually. He had learned from others' reports that the deeper one went into the abyss, the greater the chance of special opportunities, rare artifacts, or armors of extraordinary power. For example, Kafu Shu had obtained his white battle armor in the abyss, an item that could resist countless external assaults and had been with him for ages. Such special finds were far more likely beyond the 10th level. The first 10 levels rarely yielded them, or recipients kept them secret. Beyond the 20th level, rumors spoke of even more extraordinary luck, but only a handful occupied those deep layers. In the infinite mixed origin space, only the infinite serpent ancestor held the 21st level, the devil ruins held the 22nd, Lord Qingmang the 26th, and Sha Zhou the 27th. Yuan occupied the 19th level. Being first to claim a level in the abyss conferred a major advantage. Luo Feng took his time, mastering the feel and subtleties of severance power. Watching from afar, the primal Chaos Beast ancestor felt a pang of envy. Those cultivator lords all master a Hunyuan Dao, he mused. I rely on my innate endowments. Born an ancestor, my domain is my strength, yet I cannot become undying. His domain body had always been both his power and his limitation. To be truly undying, he believed, he would need to break free from the confines of a distinct physical form and allow his domain to merge fully with the infinite mixed origin space. Only then could he be one with the infinite mixed origin space and avoid annihilation. Otherwise, even if he withstood attacks now, annihilation remained a possibility. He remembered the time he and the Black Tide ancestor absorbed Luo Feng's source Great Destruction, and each lost a tenth of their bodies, enough to frighten him into caution. The idea of merging completely into the infinite mixed origin space terrified him with its difficulty. After more than an epoch, Luo Feng told him, "There's no need for the world messengers to continue. I'll move on to the next level." Before Luo Feng left, the primal chaos beast ancestor asked in a low voice, "How do you think my void body could truly merge into the infinite mixed origin space?" "To merge, you must first understand it," Luo Feng replied. "You need to comprehend the infinite mixed origin space itself, at least a supreme spatial power. Even if you can't grasp the Hunyuan space Tao, absorbing a highest level spatial principle would let you bring your domain into harmony with the infinite mixed origin space." The idea of comprehending a new highest level power stunned the primal chaos beast ancestor. He bowed his thanks, and Luo Feng continued upward. The cultivator camp treated the heavenly origin camp with a mixture of hostility and strategic warmth. The giant god emperor, Black Tide ancestor, and primal chaos beast ancestor led the anti-war faction among the 9 emperors. The cultivator camp preferred fewer main combat factions engaged in war because large-scale fighting produced heavy losses in the world clusters. That was why the cultivator camp maintained a friendlier stance toward those 3. Luo Feng reflected on how hard it was to master even one highest-level power. When he had first formed his mixed origin life extinguishment Tao, it had taken more than 3 epochs to comprehend blood power. His Hunyuan Tao of the blade was only nascent. To assimilate severance power fully would be far harder than mastering a single highest-level power, but still easier than mastering a complete new Hunyuan Tao. Progenitors and ancestors grew differently. Many naturally came to master a single highest-level power. Mastering a second one was a much steeper climb. Even within great clans, it was rare. For example, none of the giant god emperor's kin could control the giant god world, and among the infinite great serpent clan, only the infinite serpent ancestor had fully mastered 2 highest-level powers. Luo Feng moved on, spending 1 or 2 epochs in each destruction world, absorbing the dominant destruction force there. On the 5th level, he met the Lotus Hell Mountain Master, who hated all cultivator lords and refused to cooperate. Forced into a fight, Luo Feng took an aggressive stance and compelled the Lotus Hell Mountain Master into an all-out battle with 800 world messengers. After an earth-shattering campaign lasting more than an epoch, Luo Feng learned that level's power and moved forward. When he reached the 7th level, Wulan's booming laughter echoed across the world. "Brother Luo Feng, I sensed you lingered a couple of epochs in each level, comprehending destruction force?" Other lords had guessed that after breaking through by power, Luo Feng would seek a second Hunyuan Dao. They expected he would not take too long. Luo Feng admitted, "I hit a bottleneck. I came to the abyss to build my accumulations." "Tell me what you need," Wulan said. "I asked Brother Wulan to send all the messengers of this level against me," Luo Feng replied. Wulan consented. 600 world messengers, fiery, lava-like beasts, attacked in a cyclonic onslaught. Luo Feng studied the new destruction force, violent force, composed roughly of 80% destruction Dao and 20% fire Dao. After more than an epoch, Wulan withdrew the messengers. "Stay as long as you need," Wulan laughed. "My avatar usually slumbers. Only outsiders wake me." Luo Feng transformed the earth with a thought and fashioned a simple cave dwelling. Wulan's huge form sank back into the ground to sleep, only rousing for intruders. Inside the cave, Luo Feng secluded himself. He had now experienced 7 distinct types of destruction force. It was time to digest them, integrate their mysteries, and let them become part of his path. Chapter 410, Breakthroughs One After Another. For over 500 epochs, Luo Feng had been in secluded cultivation on the 7th level of the Abyss of Destruction. Far away, inside the hidden precincts of the Heavenly Origin Camp, an enormous sphere of light swelled and pulsed. Its terrifying fluctuations spread outward, unsettling and ever-widening region, and even some nearby skyborn mixed-source tribes felt dread at the monstrous energy rippling through space. What's happening? Has the infinite serpent ancestor lost control? The five progenitors and the thousands of world-level Hunyuan who served the infinite serpent ancestor all turned toward his true form. Even in cultivation, he did not hide himself. His body existed as a supergiant sphere of light, its radiance touching every life within an immense radius. Then they saw it, black patterns crawling across the surface of the light sphere. Where there had been nothing but boundless light, the sphere was now streaked and veined with inky designs. Those patterns writhed like countless ugly black serpents, and they seemed to burrow into the minds of those who looked at them, seeping into bodies and souls like a corrosive miasma. Ah! Thousands of world-level Hunyuan cried out as a terrifying contamination ate into them. Though they had long been used to observing the infinite serpent ancestor's true form, they had never before felt this level of corruption. Previously, his true form's pollution had been negligible, certainly harmless to world-level Hunyuan, but now it clawed at their essence. Do not look directly. Do not look at his true form, the five progenitors shouted urgently. They themselves weren't frightened. They could see that the ugly black tracings were actually profound, dark, secret runes. The depths of their meaning were so extreme that simply staring at them at close range could severely contaminate a world-level Hunyuan. These thousands of world-level Hunyuan are being poisoned. Let them fend for themselves. Those who can resist will survive. Those who can't will die. The five progenitors were anxious, but indifferent to the fate of the lesser Hunyuan. They focused on the light sphere. With the black runes coiling across its surface, the sphere's power rose to a terrifying pitch, far greater than anything they had seen before. What on earth happened to the infinite serpent ancestor? His true form pollution has never been this severe. Then, in a pulse, the sphere expanded wildly. It erupted into blinding light and swept through an enormous territory. Fortunately, the earlier alarm had cleared the area of most life. Still, the aftershock touched even the progenitors, making them wince. Farther out, the shock shattered some distant high-level origin life outright and scattered low-level Hunyuan life into annihilated energy. This force rivals 7 or 8/10 of that Luo Feng Lord's self-detonation, one progenitor murmured. The five of them were shaken. Though the infinite serpent ancestor had long been among the top 3 of the 9 emperors of the skyborn mixed source, he had never been like this. A booming laugh echoed, and the sphere steadied, its surface still rippling with feral fluctuations. I once tried self-detonation, the voice rolled through space. Back then, I could only recover less than 1/10 of my body. My recovery was far worse than Luo Feng's. But now my boundless light has advanced, and my life core has transformed into boundless light as well. Truly undying, truly immortal. Ha ha! You can self-detonate? The five progenitors reacted in disbelief. Progenitors normally avoided self-detonation because their life cores were vulnerable. The infinite serpent ancestor laughed on, intoxicated with triumph. I owe this to Luo Feng, he said, voice resounding. Your self-detonation technique inspired me. It advanced my boundless light. The five progenitors' faces shifted from shock to envy and congratulations. Before this, only 4 progenitors in the entire Heavenly Origin camp had reached the undying and undying state. Now the infinite serpent ancestor had joined them. Brother Infinite, what will you do next? One asked. Prove my strength to limitless primal space and win a seat in the eternal land, came the reply. As with any lord born in the cultivator camp, a seat in the eternal land is expected, but progenitors must still earn recognition. The simplest, most direct proof: fight deeper into the destruction world. The infinite serpent ancestor had once occupied the 14th level of the abyss of destruction. After his breakthrough, he threw himself into deeper levels. The 15th level belonged to his old friend, the Annihilation Ancestor, whom he did not challenge. The 16th level was held by Mo Gus, and to take it, he had forced Mo Gus to marshal all the world messengers against him. Radiating boundless light, the infinite serpent ancestor overwhelmed them and imprinted his mark on the source shadow, then pushed onward. The 17th level was occupied by Yu Huang, who commanded the power of light and the power of feather and had the Feather Realm to enhance him. Yu Huang rallied all world messengers and fought a great battle in which he managed to halt the Infinite Serpent Ancestor, at least when they joined forces. He admitted frankly that one-on-one, he would likely have been at a disadvantage. The Infinite Serpent Ancestor's boundless light was now far stronger. At the 18th level, he met Kafu Shu, a brutal close combatant backed by world messengers. Kafu Shu was formidable, but his movement technique could not match the Serpent Ancestor's. Using part of his power to hold Kafu Shu in place while repelling the assisting messengers, the Infinite Serpent Ancestor forced an imprint and claimed the 18th level. He had failed to seize the 17th and could only barely take the 18th by restraining his opponents. The 19th level belonged to Yuan, whose primordial origin rules transformed that entire layer of the destruction world into a single, sealed entity. Yuan needed no world messengers. Alone, he blocked the Infinite Serpent Ancestor. From the 20th level onward, the Serpent Ancestor tried level after level and failed to break through. His strength now ranked alongside top figures like Yuan and Devil Ruins, but as a latecomer, he had only conquered up to the 18th level. When news of his breakthrough reached Luo Feng in seclusion, he raised an eyebrow. The Heavenly Origin Camp had just swallowed massive Origin world resources from hundreds of world clusters, and several new progenitors had arisen, but one more undying and undying being was a significant gain. The Infinite Serpent Ancestor's rise to Yuan's level increased the Heavenly Origin Camp's overall might, and since the Serpent Ancestor had no tribe, he wouldn't be competing for tribal resources. The Eternal Land accepted its 30th member, the Infinite Serpent Ancestor. When he first appeared there, the other 29 manifested their avatars. Last time it was Lord Luo Feng, this time the Infinite Serpent Ancestor, Devil Ruins commented. War breeds powerful individuals. The Serpent Ancestor spoke casually in high spirits, describing his victory and thanking Luo Feng directly for the inspiration. Luo Feng replied calmly, "Don't thank me. Your own accumulation was deep enough." After the reception, Luo Feng declined the celebration the Infinite Serpent Ancestor held in his honor. Yuan, Jin, and Mo Man sent their avatars, but Luo Feng returned to his cave and resumed his isolation. His Hunyuan Dao of the Blade already had a complete framework and a clear prototype. He had comprehended over 90% of it. While in the abyss of destruction, he had studied the 7 highest-level destruction forces and deepened his accumulation. Then, in a sudden moment, Luo Feng opened his eyes. A terrifying sharpness gleamed in his gaze, the edge of the highest powers of the path of destruction. Finally, he thought, a thrill of joy in his chest. Though the Hunyuan Dao of the Blade was not yet complete, he had at last comprehended one of its highest-level techniques, the severance power. The destructive severing art would make up for many of his prior weaknesses. Chapter 411. How is this possible? Luo Feng sat cross-legged, clad in black with a blood-red robe draped over him. Yet his aura was completely different now. Previously, his presence had been deep and vast, almost like a source world itself, so powerful that even ancient progenitors would wince before it. They all knew that even dozens of progenitors attacking together would have difficulty destroying Luo Feng's body. His defenses ranked among the best in the infinite mixed origin space. Still, many progenitors did not fear mere defense. What they feared was killing power. Luo Feng had only one signature move, Source Great Destruction, a self-detonation technique that relied on a massive energy reserve. It had kept adversaries cautious, but the progenitors were not foolish. After confronting it once, they learned to take precautions. My mixed origin life extinguishment Dao is primarily focused on life, Luo Feng thought. It has some destructive methods, but it still lacks fundamentally compared to a true highest level power. A highest level power was a qualitative leap. For example, the blood power of Blood Crane territory was inferior to Luo Feng's life extinguishment Dao in many respects, but that was when compared to him alone. Against most progenitors, his reserves, life force, and recovery were already terrifying. This severance power has many shortcomings compared to the Hunyuan Dao of the blade I pursue, he admitted. But it is, after all, a highest-level destruction force. It lets my destructive aspect undergo a qualitative change. Relying only on severance power, he would naturally be a little weaker than Jin, Ming Huang, or Mo Man. Combine the mixed origin life extinguishment Tao with severance power, though, and the result was different. My life form is nearly 100 times stronger than Jin, Mo Man, and the others. Any casual move I unleash can rival them, burning their main combat avatars, Luo Feng mused. What heights can severance power reach when driven by such terrifying life energy? He wasn't certain how strong he was yet. A progenitor who mastered 2 highest-level powers could generally rival a lord, and with perfect combination and special fortune, some could even overpower a lord. There were examples: Ice Peak Ancestor, Infinite Serpent Ancestor, Kafu Shu, Devil Ruins, and so on, who combined different highest-level powers. I have a Hunyuan Dao and a highest-level power, Luo Feng thought. I should be even stronger than most of them. There were only 2 who made him uneasy, Xing Mang and Sha Zhou. A highest-level destructive power, once its flaws were patched and fused with the life aspect, produced a true qualitative change. Luo Feng's techniques would no longer be only about overwhelming quantity. Each unit of force would be deeply profound, containing highest-level destructive mysteries. His aura now carried traces of that destructive essence. This is not my final form, he told himself. If I master the Hunyuan Dao of the blade, I will be even stronger. After comprehending severance power, Luo Feng finally saw the biggest bottleneck in creating a complete Hunyuan Dao of the blade: his inner self. Any lord's most proficient path is the one most aligned to their true heart. The second path is never as perfectly aligned. Luo Feng had once seen Jin's legacy and recoiled at the spiritual methods in it: destroy everything for personal power. That clashed with his nature. My inner self must be aligned enough with destruction to forge a Hunyuan Dao of the blade that is fundamentally destructive, he realized. His heart had been tempered into a blade, able to sever obstacles. Over eons it had grown sharper. But that blade heart was barely enough to grasp highest-level severance power. It was not yet sufficient to form a complete Hunyuan Dao of the blade. Accumulation first, he resolved. The more I gather, the better. On the path of cultivation, Luo Feng always prepared abundantly. When the time came, the way forward grew easier. With a thought, the cave where he had been meditating dissolved, returning its energy to the destruction world. Brother Wu Lan, I will continue to explore the next level, Luo Feng said aloud. Congratulations, younger brother Luo Feng, came the reply. When Luo Feng had broken through, the disturbance had already alerted Wu Lan, the master of this destruction world. Wu Lan assumed Luo Feng had advanced in cultivation and did not believe he had forged a second Dao. A cultivator creating a second Hunyuan Dao was not just a personal milestone. It was a major event for the entire cultivator camp and needed to be reported to the other lords. The Abyss of Destruction, this place named for destruction, was a sacred land in the hearts of many progenitors across the infinite mixed origin space. A seat in the eternal land meant undying. Holding a level in the Abyss of Destruction put one among the top 30 in combat. Even famous existences like Lotus Hell Mountain Master and the Hunyuan Beast Emperor only occupied top 5 levels. The 2 sacred lands symbolized survival and combat ability respectively. Luo Feng passed through the spatial temporal barrier and entered the 8th level of the Abyss of Destruction. Mist shrouded the world. A towering black figure rose from the ground, covered in obsidian scales, a single eye blazing with blood-red fire, studying Luo Feng coldly. Lord Luo Feng, why have you come here? Are you trying to seize this destruction world level? The figure demanded. Ancestor Wu Gu, Luo Feng answered calmly. This towering one was none other than Wu Gu, one of the top 5 among the 12 Undying in the Ice Peak camp. You must have sensed that I've been steadily delving deeper through the levels of the destruction world, staying years in each. I am exploring the Abyss of Destruction to refine my cultivation. I will not seize this level from you. Do you think I'd believe that? Ancestor Wu Gu snapped. Your cultivator lords have taken levels from me before. This was the 8th level. Lord Nai Gu was on the 9th, while Ming Huang, Jin, and Mo Man occupied the 11th to 13th levels. Wu Gu was from the same era as Yuan, yet he had been overtaken by several cultivator lords. The way these lords expanded and seized territory had been a sore point. Wu Gu had even personally stationed his true body in the land he had taken, only to be forced to give it up later. He had suffered humiliation. I can promise not to seize this level from you. I have only one request. Arrange all your world messengers to attack me for 1 or 2 epochs, Luo Feng proposed. Allow me to be tested by them. Cooperate with your cultivation? Wu Gu derided. You dream richly. Even if Luo Feng meant no seizure, Wu Gu would not cooperate. In the Ice Peak Camp's invasion of the cultivator territory, Wu Gu had been one of the principal invaders. He bore a grudge. He refused outright. Get lost. Go to the next level, he sneered. Luo Feng's expression went cold. Then I will force your cooperation. Force me? Ha ha ha. If I don't want to, you won't even touch a single world messenger. Wu Gu scoffed. Get out of my destruction world level. He thought, and vast dark clouds rolled in, thick and crushing. The clouds, empowered by the world's own destruction world power, surged to submerge Luo Feng. World power could condense into hundreds of world messengers or be used to strengthen one's own body. Condensing messengers maximized offensive might. Wu Gu was not adept with the destruction force native to this level, but he was powerful in other respects. His life core could integrate with any avatar, and at this moment, his life core fused into his avatar from afar, making this avatar his true body. Bolstered by continuous destruction world power, it rose to full strength, about 30% stronger than his normal true body. The dark clouds slammed down, oppressive and thick. Get out! Wu Gu bellowed in contempt. He would not help any cultivator lord who came to test him. Suddenly, a cold blade light flared. It ripped through the layers of dark cloud and struck Ancestor Wu Gu's body. He felt a terrifying force slash through him. His body, as if in response, split open. Split open? Wu Gu was both shocked and furious. He turned to look. The blade light carried a figure and had already cleaved deep into the earth of this destruction world level, driving straight toward the source shadow at its core. This is bad. Wu Gu's speed could not match Luo Feng's now. The destruction world power that had been shoring him up immediately dispersed and coalesced into 550 world messengers. Stop him, Wu Gu ordered desperately. That cluster of messengers working together was only slightly weaker than him. If they could delay Luo Feng even briefly, he could join them. 550 world messengers surged to block the path. The condensed blade light flashed like a meteor. In an instant, over 300 world messengers were cleaved in Yi Dao Liang Duan, one cut, two segmented. With almost no obstruction, the blade light had already reached the place where the source shadow lay. Ancestor Wu Gu hadn't even managed to arrive when he felt he had lost control of this destruction world level. Luo Feng reappeared on the surface, his blood-red robe fluttering, staring coldly at him. I don't need your cooperation anymore. Leave, Luo Feng said. How is this possible? This is impossible. Ancestor Wu Gu could not understand how, even bolstered by world power, he could not block Luo Feng for a single instant. Luo Feng had never shown such terrifying strength during the war between the two camps. Chapter 412, Battles on the First 18 Layers of the Abyss of Destruction. Luo Feng looked coldly at Ugu Progenitor. Still not giving up? Still want to fight? Ugu Progenitor, an existence on par with a cultivator lord, had sharp perception. His domain and physical form had been severed effortlessly, and over 300 world messengers had been cut down with a single blade strike. He understood what that terrifying power meant. I never expected the cultivator camp to have a Starlight Lord, and you, Lord Luo Feng. Ugu Progenitor snorted, then drilled into space-time and fled toward a higher layer of the Abyss of Destruction, the Ice Peak camp's territory. A clone of Ugu descended to report. Ice Peak Ancestor, an imposing figure formed of deep blue ice, stirred. The endless cold radiating from him made it impossible for lower-level and many high-level Hunyuan to survive nearby. Ugu, Ice Peak Ancestor, opened his eyes. Is something wrong? The Ice Peak camp's top three were Shazhou, Ice Peak, and Pu Cheng. Pu Cheng Progenitor was notoriously unruly, but Ugu, though ambitious, had been comparatively obedient. Ice Peak still valued him. I met Luo Feng in the Abyss of Destruction, Ugu said solemnly. I gave it everything I had, but he severed my body with a single blade, and he took control of the 8th layer destruction world. Ice Peak Ancestor was stunned. Impossible. You wouldn't have believed it before seeing it either. Ugu waved his hand and projected the battle scene next to him. Confrontations in the abyss of destruction happened frequently, and many forces couldn't monitor every layer constantly. The clash between Ugu and Luo Feng had been so quick that nobody noticed it at the time. When I fought Luo Feng, no other strong individuals were watching my lair. This battle is still a secret. Few could observe such past events at the progenitor or lord level. Observing the future was even harder, as countless possible timelines confounded those who tried. Ice Peak watched the replay and made a grim judgment. "This Luo Feng is truly powerful," Ice Peak said. "Your physical body ranks only upper middle among progenitors, but with that domain and the Destruction World's blessing, you couldn't block even one move. That destructive power surpasses Mo Man, Jin, and Ming Huang of the Cultivator camp." Ugu nodded. He had clashed with Mo Man, Jin, and Ming Huang over Destruction Worlds before. Severance power on its own was weaker than theirs, but Luo Feng had combined it with the mixed-origin life-extinguishing Dao. Some of Luo Feng's killing moves could instantly release 1/10 of his reserves, far more than the combat avatars of Jin and the others burned. That was why Luo Feng's blade had easily severed Ugu's body. "Yuan is formidable at formations," Ice Peak continued, "but he can't do what Luo Feng did. This destructive force directly threatens Xingmang and Shazhou. It can already be considered top tier in the infinite mixed origin space." Ice Peak's mood darkened. The Cultivator camp had once answered to him, but it was growing independent and powerful, and with Luo Feng rising, it would only strengthen further. "How should we respond?" Ugu asked. Ice Peak sighed. "Don't act hastily. Limitless just broke through, and Luo Feng has broken through now. The real conflict will be with the Heavenly Origin camp. They hold half the progenitors in the limitless primal space and thirst for resources and source world origin. Those two camps are destined to be mortal enemies. Let them fight first. The fiercer their struggle, the more hatred will deepen, making reconciliation impossible." Ugu agreed. The Ice Peak camp had far fewer progenitors than the Heavenly Origin camp. Ice Peak continued, "How long has Luo Feng been a lord? Our camp hasn't seen such a rising star in ages." "He's terrifying," Ugu admitted, surprised by Luo Feng's rate of growth. "He's already closing in on Xingmang and Shazhou. What will he be in the future?" Ice Peak felt powerless. The Cultivator camp might surpass Ice Peak's influence, and his camp had limited means to stop it. On the 8th layer of the Abyss of Destruction, Luo Feng examined the Source Shadow. He had just left his mark on it at top speed, and now studied it closely. Unlike ordinary mysterious lands, the Source Shadow felt ethereal, almost reliant on the whole Abyss of Destruction to exist. "Even on the 8th layer, with all the world power blessing me, I only feel about a 2/10 increase," Luo Feng noted. The Destruction World's blessing was weak here. In Blood Crane territory, his strength could multiply several times. Even at a distance, that blessing was significant. Once he left a particular layer, the blessing would weaken further. Its practical use was mainly to bless weapons, increasing their destructive power, typically by about 1/10 depending on the layer. Many progenitor and lord moves didn't use weapons, domains and long-range attacks, for example, so they wouldn't benefit from Destruction World blessings. Compared with controlling a mysterious land, the assistance from holding a layer of the Destruction World was limited. Still, for progenitors and lords, even a 1/10 increase for weapons was worth noting. Any further growth at their level was painstakingly difficult. Luo Feng had just broken through with his power-breaking method and was in a rapid growth phase. If he fully comprehended the Hunyuan Dao of the blade, he would face the same steep climbs as other top-tier beings. "Attack me," he commanded. Sitting cross-legged on the 8th layer, Luo Feng summoned 550 world messengers to assault him. He calmly assessed the layer's destruction force. The 8th layer's strongest form could be called the Extinction Force, composed roughly of 8/10 destruction and 2/10 world. Destruction Force characteristics varied by layer. Deep layers fused more Daos into their power. According to what Luo Feng knew, from the 20th layer onward, the Destruction Force fused 3 Daos. For example, the 26th layer, where the Starlight Lord resided, was the Black Fire Tribulation Force, 8/10 destruction, 1/10 fire Dao, and 1/10 darkness. That layer only hosted 50 world messengers, but even a fragment of that force, when combined, was enough to pressure Starlight Lord. Did more fused Daos make one stronger? Luo Feng considered what progenitors and lords experienced. Mastering more highest-level powers and combining them perfectionately increased power, but the difficulty rose astronomically. The Blood Crane territory contained 3 highest-level powers. Mastering 4 or more was an extraordinary threshold. Presently, individual progenitors could at most master 2 different supreme powers. Cultivator lords at most 2 Hunyuan Daos. More Daos and more types of top powers boosted strength, but each additional step grew vastly harder. Luo Feng resolved to root himself in his path and walk it steadily. Surrounded by the 550 world messengers, he studied the destruction force's mysteries and increased his accumulation. While he cultivated, chaos erupted across the lower layers. Ugu Progenitor first attacked Wulan of the 7th layer, but was repelled by the combined world messengers. He then clashed with Shu Sai Wei of the 6th layer. Shu Sai Wei was also from Ice Peak Camp and had a poor history with Ugu. Again, Ugu was blocked. Finally, Ugu seized the 5th layer from Lotus Hell Mountain Master. Lotus Hell Mountain Master excelled at defense, but Ugu's domain restrained him, allowing Ugu to overcome him and take the layer. Having lost his destruction world, Lotus Hell Mountain Master vied for other layers and fought Emberfire Ancestor of the 4th layer. In the end, none of the first few layers remained stable. Battles erupted everywhere. After more than 1 epoch on the 8th layer, Luo Feng moved down to the 9th. 3 women stood there, each different. One petite and cute, one tall and aloof, and one with calm, emotionless eyes. Lord Luo Feng, they greeted. Lu Yue progenitor. Luo Feng replied politely. Lu Yue had 3 bodies sharing a single life core, which could switch between them at will. Her strength ranked among the top 20 in the limitless primal space, but because of her 3-body form, she had not reached undying. Killing her outright was extraordinarily difficult. She was transcendent and usually avoided disputes. If unprovoked, she was friendly, but she retaliated fiercely when crossed. Not long ago, the 9th layer had been occupied by Lord Nai Gu, but with Limitless Progenitor seizing the 18th layer from Kafu Shu, chaotic battles had spread from the 9th to the 18th layers. Luo Feng's capture of the 8th layer from Ugu had helped ignite those conflicts. In short, the first 18 layers were all in upheaval, and many occupants had changed. Lord Luo Feng fought down layer by layer from the first, staying at least an epoch in each. Is this for cultivation? Lu Yue asked. Yes, I also hope you can arrange your world messengers to attack me, Luo Feng said. No trouble at all. Lu Yue smiled. Ordering world messengers required no resources. She was happy to forge a connection with Luo Feng. Soon, 500 world messengers swarmed him, and Luo Feng continued to test the new destruction force. After more than 1 epoch, he bid Lu Yu farewell and moved on. To fight down the layers and remain an epoch in each, this Lord Luo Feng must have formidable one-on-one methods, Lu Yue mused. Not every layer would give face. Sometimes he had to rely on raw strength. She began to watch his progress more closely. Above and below the 10th layer, the difficulty changed drastically. Far below would be the realms of Limitless Progenitor, Yuan, Ice Peak, Infinite Serpent Ancestor, and beyond them, Xingmang, Shazhou, the deeper layers still unconquered. I wonder which layer Lord Luo Feng will ultimately reach, Lu Yue silently pondered as she watched him depart. Chapter 410, Attention. Naigu Lord stood in the 10th layer of the Abyss of Destruction. His dark green skin shimmered as he glanced up to see Luo Feng descending. A smile crossed his face. Luo Feng, I've been waiting for you. Luo Feng returned the smile, relaxed. Naigu, you've reached the 10th layer already? Naigu nodded. All thanks to that limitless progenitor. He seized the 18th layer from Kafu Shu, which sparked a chaotic battle and let the rest of us advance. The abyss rarely shifts like that. Luo Feng understood. Only a few who already occupied layers or had help from world messengers could hold steady. Otherwise, only exceptional figures like himself or the limitless progenitor could change positions. He searched the abyss's currents with his senses. What about Mogus? He's gone? After losing the 18th, Kafu Shu went after the weakened Mogus. Naigu explained. Starlight Lord hunted Mogus until he had less than 10% of his life left. Naturally, he couldn't hold the layer. For now, Mogus isn't in contention. Luo Feng felt relief. The entire cultivator camp distrusted Mogus, but across limitless primal space Mogus, whose specialty was the highest level of soul power, had only one natural enemy, Starlight Lord. Other factions tolerated him because Mogus cared little for resources. He sought only the souls of the weak. He was undying and ranked among the top 10 in strength, close to the Infinite Serpent Ancestor, Ice Peak Ancestor, and Yuan. Few dared provoke him. Even injured, most avoided contesting his destruction world for fear of his retaliation once he recovered. Only the equally solitary Kafu Shu would seize from him by force. Mogus is terrifying, Naigu sighed. He commands the highest level of soul power. In the past, even progenitors and lords couldn't threaten him. During our darkest times, over a tenth of the source worlds in the cultivator camp were infiltrated by his force. Countless souls were devoured. Luo Feng was silent. More than a tenth of the living beings in their camp's source worlds having their souls consumed was intolerable to any lord. Starlight Lord's pursuit is difficult, Naigu added. He must search across space-time for Mogus's traces and only manages to weaken him temporarily. Mogus will come back. There's nothing we can do, Luo Feng admitted. The highest level of soul power could lurk within any being below ancestor level. In the vastness of limitless primal space and its countless lives, what could he do? If our camp produced a lord who mastered the soul Tao, we might counter him, Naigu mused. That's unlikely. We haven't even produced a god-king ultimate realm in the soul Tao, Luo Feng said. There was no complete soul Tao in the grand Taos of the source worlds to guide them. Historically, there'd been 93 half-primordial origin fusion Tao cultivators, but never a god-king ultimate realm of the soul Tao. A full Hunyuan Tao of soul was still far off. Naigu, please have all your world messengers besiege me so I can cultivate, Luo Feng asked. All right. Naigu obliged at once. Though he followed a calamity-esque path like Jin, Naigu was warmly disposed toward Luo Feng. He knew Luo Feng, who often broke rules by force, might be the most useful ally in obtaining ancestor bloodlines. Whoever helped him acquire an ancestor bloodline would be a close friend. Jin was more arrogant. Two dispositions could be seen in their paths. One embraced ancestor bloodlines, the Hunyuan bloodline Tao. The other was the primal destruction way, with a will bent on annihilation. On the 11th layer of the abyss stood Pu Cheng Ancestor, the third strongest in the Ice Peak camp. Small, thin, and strong-willed, Pu Cheng Ancestor's combat ability rivaled Mo Man, Jin, and Ming Huang. He had a powerful body and was one of the 12 Undying of the Ice Peak camp, notoriously at odds with Ice Peak Ancestor. Lord Luo Feng, the Pu Cheng clan and your cultivator camp have always been friendly. Yuan is my friend as well, Pu Cheng Ancestor said politely. You are welcome to visit our territory anytime. Thank you, Pu Cheng Ancestor. Luo Feng knew Pu Cheng and Shu Sai Wei had the best relations with the cultivator camp. Shu Sai Wei's rise to Undying was connected to Yuan, which made their friendship deep. Pu Cheng's good relations with the cultivator camp also stemmed from long rivalry with the Ice Peak clan. Pu Cheng and Ice Peak were the two strongest Ice Peak camp families, constantly clashing for resources. You want world messengers to besiege you? Pu Cheng smiled. He'd watched Luo Feng. The young lord had been besieged for epochs in previous destruction worlds. 1 or 2 epochs will do. Thank you, Luo Feng replied. Pu Cheng nodded and dispatched world messengers at once. The 12th to 14th layers belonged to Ming Huang, Jin, and Mo Man respectively, also from the cultivator camp, so they cooperated readily. Be careful from the 15th layer onward, Mo Man warned. You'll probably have to fight continuously. Luo Feng nodded. His eyes burned with fighting spirit. Deeper layers meant fiercer opponents, and for someone who loved battle, every great fight was a rare and precious treasure since becoming a lord. I'll savor every opponent. With that, he dove deeper into the abyss of destruction. The 15th layer was wrapped in endless darkness. Its occupier was Annihilation Ancestor, one of the top 3 of the Heavenly Origin camp. Luo Feng, a dense black light coalesced, forming a vague figure that was part human, part bird. Annihilation Ancestor, Luo Feng acknowledged. I've watched you traverse the abyss, Annihilation Ancestor said. You don't explore in detail. You have the world messengers of each layer besiege you. Luo Feng cared most about the destruction force of each layer. He didn't waste time on shallow exploration. Annihilation Ancestor, please have all your world messengers besiege me. My true body isn't here. Annihilation Ancestor's voice boomed through the world. You, a cultivator lord, expect me to help? Ridiculous. Luo Feng smiled. Then I'll force you to cooperate. Try it. Annihilation Ancestor was confident. Even without my true body, you can't touch me. Luo Feng drew the sky-rending blade. He'd already gained 6 destruction weapons in battles with world messengers, but none surpassed the sky-rending blade's level. Annihilation Ancestor thought, and 260 purple birds materialized. Their bodies were covered in dense purple scales, etched with countless secret patterns. Each bird was a weapon in itself, infused with a portion of the highest destruction force. At the same time, Annihilation Ancestor split its consciousness, pouring black light into each bird. Normally, progenitors imbued the world power of a destruction world into avatars or messengers. Here, lacking its true body, Annihilation Ancestor empowered its world messengers directly with its essence. Annihilation Ancestor specialized in darkness and death power, the 2 highest-level forces that combined into what they called annihilation power. It could target both body and soul, even not yet fully undying. Its strength placed it among the Heavenly Origin Camp's top 3. Kill! The 260 messenger birds, each carrying annihilation power, threw themselves at Luo Feng. Together they matched 80 to 90% of Annihilation Ancestor's strength. Now, with the empowerment, they were slightly stronger than the Ancestor's full true body. 2 birds with razor claws struck Luo Feng's blood-colored robe, scattering faint ripples of damage. Luo Feng felt the hits and casually retaliated. Blade sheen-like threads swept out and sliced dozens of purple birds as if cutting silk. The expression that hovered over Annihilation Ancestor's black light flickered. With my empowerment, are these world messengers so fragile before him? Annihilation Ancestor could not believe it. Luo Feng didn't use full power. He treated the barrage as cultivation. He measured the destruction force in the attacks and tested his blade's counters. Still, dozens of birds fell. The empowered messengers should have been stronger than the Ancestor's true body, yet before Luo Feng, they offered no resistance. Annihilation Ancestor's mind trembled. Luo Feng's blade was both restrained and indestructible. When it touched, it cleaved utterly. It was the kind of strike that split things cleanly in 2. Luo Feng stared at the scattered purple birds circling and said aloud, Annihilation Ancestor, arrange for all your world messengers to fully besiege me. I need them to continue for 1 or 2 epochs. If you won't cooperate, I'll forcibly seize this layer of the destruction world. Luo Feng made no secret of his lack of interest in owning the layer. He wanted sustained besiegement for cultivation. I cannot stop you, Annihilation Ancestor admitted. Surprised by Luo Feng's temperament, strong enough to take the layer but giving it up, he ordered full cooperation. He empowered the messengers and commanded them to attack relentlessly. Each time a messenger died, its power condensed into a new one, so the siege continued without pause. Luo Feng immersed himself in cultivation, indifferent to Annihilation Ancestor. The Ancestor's mood was complicated. Being among the Heavenly Origin Camp's top 3 and occupying a deep layer of the abyss that marked one of the top-tier existences, it had expected more. The clash drew attention. Many powerful beings watched: cultivator lords, Ancestor Liyue, Ancestor Wugu, and a host of progenitors. A 15th-layer confrontation between strong existences naturally garnered notice. Luo Feng's strength has grown since the war between the 2 camps, someone murmured. Annihilation Ancestor wasn't in his true body, but still, these world messengers together should not have failed so easily. From the 16th layer onward, the occupiers are top 10 existences in their true bodies. It'll be entirely different. A true body plus world messengers is a terrible combination. You can't win unless you're far stronger or have a perfect counter. The progenitors watched eagerly, anticipating fiercer clashes ahead. The 7 lords of the cultivator camp noticed Luo Feng's improvement. Yuan reached out telepathically, excited. Luo Feng, have you comprehended a second Hunyuan Dao? Not yet. I've comprehended a form of destruction force, Luo Feng replied. Yuan brightened. 2 different types of highest-level power, well combined, could unleash tremendous might. Luo Feng already had a Hunyuan Dao merged with a destruction force, which made his foundation deeper. Life and destruction forces together suited him well for battle. More and more eyes turned toward him. In the 16th layer, Kafu Shu stood in white battle armor, staring through space-time at Luo Feng, cultivating in the 15th. His eyes burned with a fiercer fervor than ever. A loner by nature, Kafu Shu was perhaps the most warlike figure in limitless primal space. Battle was his greatest joy in the long sweep of his life. He craved hardy, exhilarating struggle. Luo Feng, Kafu Shu thought, lips curling, my 16th layer won't be easily passed. He looked forward to the fight to come. Chapter 414, Luo Feng's True Strength. When Luo Feng advanced to the 16th layer of the Abyss of Destruction, more than 30 ancient existences across the limitless primal space watched with grave attention. Among them were the Infinite Serpent Ancestor and the Ice Peak Ancestor, their expressions unreadable. Although I'm slightly stronger than Kafu Shu, if he joins forces with the World Messengers, I'll be at a disadvantage, the Ice Peak Ancestor muttered coldly. As one of the highest and most powerful figures in the limitless primal space, backed by Shaozhou's support, his authority was enormous. But the cultivator camp, once reliant on him, had been growing steadily stronger, and that growth did not please him. This duel will reveal Luo Feng's true strength, Ice Peak Ancestor observed with indifference. Kafu Shu's combat power was universally respected. He had formerly occupied the 18th layer. After Limitless Ancestor broke through, he had failed to claim the 17th. Yu Huang and many world messengers had collaborated to suppress Limitless Ancestor. In raw might, Limitless Ancestor was slightly above Kafu Shu, but he could not prevail against Kafu Shu backed by the world messengers. At that time, Limitless Ancestor used Ubiquity to restrain Kafu Shu and seize the Source Shadow first. In partnership with the world messengers, Kafu Shu can rival Devil Ruins in strength, the Infinite Serpent Ancestor said from afar. That alone gives us a measure of Luo Feng. If the limitless primal space had to pick its third strongest, it would be Devil Ruins. If Initial embodied the pinnacle of defense, Devil Ruins represented the pinnacle of destruction, though it lacked mobility and finesse and so ranked below Xingmang and Shaozhou. Limitless Ancestor watched as well. Luo Feng's recent fight had moved him. He himself had broken through, reaching the undying and broken extinction realm. Though he felt no gratitude to an opponent, he had to respect Luo Feng. Among the more than 200 Ancestor and Lord-level existences in the limitless primal space, Luo Feng was special. I'm getting stronger, and so is Luo Feng. The cultivator camp is my greatest rival, Limitless Ancestor mused. Shaozhou, clad in gray and positioned on the 27th layer, the deepest existence recorded in the Abyss of Destruction, watched quietly. The cultivator camp will probably soon surpass the Ice Peak camp, she thought. The Skyborn Mixed Source camp held half the Ancestor-level existences and kept producing more. The cultivator camp, fed by countless source worlds, kept spawning lords, each mastering a Hunyuan Dao, powerful alone, terrifying together. As these two camps grew, Ice Peak's influence waned. Luo Feng felt more than 30 gazes on him and could trace their origins. Kafu Shu's duel attracts a lot of attention, he thought. No previous fight had drawn so many powerful observers. He pierced the layers of spatial obstruction and entered the deeper 16th layer. The destruction world here was a jungle of massive, dark green plant life, dense and thriving. On the crown of the tallest tree stood Kafu Shu in white battle armor, watching him with blazing eyes. Luo Feng, come fight me! Kafu Shu's voice rolled across the layer like thunder. Give me a satisfying fight. Even if you lose, I'll arrange for world messengers to aid your cultivation. But if you're weak, I'll just expel you. Their gazes met and understood each other's intent. Luo Feng felt the difference. He fought for clan and family, but Kafu Shu lived for the battle itself. I hope you're not like Limitless Ancestor, who only restrains and avoids confrontation. That would be dull, Kafu Shu said. Face me directly. If you can best me, I'll grant you this layer. I'll face you straight on. Luo Feng nodded and drew the sky-rending blade into his hand. Kafu Shu laughed and then moved. A colossal palm descended as if a mountain range were crashing down. The destruction world began to warp. Luo Feng stood his ground and casually swung his blade. Its light lashed like a long whip, carving an arc that split the sky and struck the palm. The giant palm was cleaved, streams of blood pouring down and drenching Luo Feng. Blood like snakes coiled around him, layer upon layer. "Break!" Luo Feng roared. Centered on him, tens of millions of blade lights erupted and swept in every direction. The binding blood threads were severed, and the palm's severed energies flew back to Kafushu's body. Kafushu acknowledged the wound with a nod. "You cut me, Luo Feng. Your blade is indeed strong." The white armor on Kafushu spread, shrouding his hands and head until his whole body glowed. Even his eyes shone white. He closed in and began close-quarters combat. Each finger struck with world-shattering force, terrifyingly sharp, devastating. His combat techniques were near the Hunyuan Dao level, every part of his body a weapon. Even a Gold Lord had been suppressed by him in direct contest. Luo Feng wielded the sky-rending blade. The Hunyuan Dao of the blade had taken shape within him. His techniques were broad and refined, amplified by the endless sharpness of severance power. He didn't rely on infinite energy to overwhelm, choosing instead to temper and hone his blade skills. The blade met Kafushu's body again and again. The armor absorbed and blunted many blows. Kafushu's body showed little visible harm. Compared to Kafushu, my blade techniques are still immature, Luo Feng realized. The operation of my 1.08 billion units of source power is clumsy. I haven't truly unleashed my potential. He restrained his bursts of power, letting each technique edge slightly ahead of his opponents, just enough to avoid being overrun. Kafushu countered with superior fighting craft. On the surface, the duel was even. Kafushu laughed as he fought, exhilarated. He loved the thrill of an evenly matched battle, the contest, the push and pull. If it were one-sided, the emotion would be lost. He preferred honor in combat and despised ambushes and underhanded tricks. He wanted a direct, wholehearted clash. Win or lose didn't matter. He relished the process itself. For Luo Feng, too, the fight was revelatory. Kafushu was one of the finest fighters in the limitless primal space. Every exchange taught Luo Feng something. His Hunyuan Dao of the blade steadily improved. Though his total energy output hadn't increased, the destructive power of his blade was gradually rising. Day after day, the two of them battled, from the treetops into the trunks and down into the earth, through changing environments, both savoring the benefits of the conflict. Observers took note. In a direct fight, Luo Feng completely suppresses Kafushu, some whispered. He's already comparable to Ice Peak Ancestor and Infinite Serpent Ancestor. More ancient existences focused their attention, dividing their minds to store and analyze countless details of the duel. "Brother Luo Feng, I know you're holding back. Show me your true power." Luo Feng respected Kafushu's passion. This long epoch had sharpened his bladecraft significantly. "All right," he said. "I'll use the killing move I just comprehended to finish this." Kafushu braced himself. Luo Feng struck. The first blow was dim and heavy, like an incomparably vast, crushing earth descending from the heavens, so weighty that many of the watching ancestors trembled. That strike alone contained 1/10 of Luo Feng's energy reserves. Before it finished, Luo Feng had already launched the second strike, dazzling, resplendent light that split the heavens. It carried the grandeur of his original source great destruction, further condensed with the mysteries of life and severance power. The second blow struck immediately after the first. The third strike flowed like a mighty river, annihilating everything in its path and sweeping aside all obstacles. Each of the three blows held 1/10 of his reserve. Together, they formed Luo Feng's most perfect, most powerful killing move yet. Kafushu had wanted him to unleash his full strength, and to honor their bond as comrades and rivals, Luo Feng did exactly that. He displayed the culmination of his newly comprehended technique. Chapter 415, The Endless Chaos Source. Chapter 412, Shaking the Limitless Primal Space. Kafushu planted his massive palms like twin mountains and took the first saber blow. The strike was overwhelmingly powerful, so strong it crushed his hands and slammed through his whole body. Even weakened by his battle armor, 70 to 80% of that force still transmitted through him, making his colossal frame tremble and spidering it with countless cracks. Humph. Kafushu forced out a low sound, his eyes burning with renewed intensity. The second saber strike arrived at once. It was a dazzling, razor-sharp blow, utterly different in nature from the first. This one carried the quality of absolute cutting, It penetrated his battle armor and pierced Kafushu himself. His body was sheared into dozens of pieces like porcelain smashed and hastily glued back together. Wonderful. Even fragmented, Kafushu managed a tone of grudging admiration. Boom! The third saber strike followed immediately. It poured out like a great river, vast, continuous, relentless. After being blunted by the armor and entering his body, it ignited the lingering powers of the first two blows. The third strike triggered the earlier two, and in an instant, all that force detonated together. Bang! Kafushu's mighty physical body detonated into a colossal cloud of blood mist. The mist condensed within his white battle armor and reformed into his body, but his internal reserves had been gutted, down to only 20%. Still, he kept absorbing power from the destruction world. His energy began climbing again. 3 saber strikes, and 80% of my body's energy gone. Kafushu laughed, a raw, exhilarated sound. Across the infinite mixed origin space, only Xiaozhou could do this before. Xiaozhou and Xingmang were publicly acknowledged as the 2 top-tier existences, but their styles differed entirely. Xingmang dominated space and time. He could observe past and future probabilities and calculated every outcome. He excelled in long, drawn-out encounters, hunting an opponent's power slowly and precisely. Xiaozhou, by contrast, was pure destruction. Destruction and more destruction. Some of the killing techniques she learned from the mysterious Tonggu land inspired terror even among ancient existences. Devil Ruins also wielded devastating destructive power, but his methods were crude and required close range and the peculiar tip of his cube to unleash. Progenitors and lords could usually avoid him. Xiaozhou's techniques, however, were sometimes unavoidable. That was why she stood on the 27th layer, while Devil Ruins was on the 22nd. 3 saber strikes that can obliterate 80% of Kafushu. If that hit me, I'd be finished. I can't face that head-on. No way. The thought raced through many minds watching from afar. From a battle with Kafushu lasting an epoch, it seems Luo Feng's saber strikes are hard to dodge. How can Lord Luo Feng be so powerful? Across the infinite mixed origin space, ancient existences peered through spatial barriers to witness the duel. The spectacle filled them with dread. Over 90% reached a single conclusion. Against Luo Feng, the only sensible option is to flee, never fight him head-on. Kafushu was a prime example. He ranked in the top 10, sported battle armor, and possessed an overwhelming physique, yet 3 saber strikes from Luo Feng had reduced him to that state. I've heard that among the cultivator camp lords, the hardest path is breaking laws with force, mused the infinite serpent ancestor. He coiled through the destruction world, occupying enormous territory, and as leader of the heavenly origin camp, he had amassed detailed intelligence on the cultivator camp. The routes cultivators used to break out of the cage were no secret to him. Xingmang breaks laws with force, and this Luo Feng does the same. Xingmang's strength rivals Xiaozhou's, and his ability to see past and future possibilities makes him terrifying. Facing him is already troublesome. But this Luo Feng, though a recently minted lord, stands with Xingmang and Xiaozhou. The infinite serpent ancestor had strict standards for evaluating progenitors and lords. After watching, he concluded that Luo Feng, Xingmang, and Xiaozhou represented the pinnacle of combat power in the infinite mixed origin space. Although I can suppress Kafushu, no matter how long I fought, I couldn't shave off 80% of his body. The serpent ancestor thought, awed and inwardly uneasy. This level of destructive power outstripped his own. The leader of the Ice Peak camp watched with equal care. He had tracked every exchange between Luo Feng and Kafushu and analyzed them obsessively. This Luo Feng's destructive power surpasses mine, Ice Peak ancestor admitted inwardly. If the gap had been small, he might have bristled, but the difference was glaring. He's on par with big sister Xiaozhou. Reluctance tinged his thoughts. Most of his own status and influence came from Xiaozhou's backing. In the Ice Peak camp, she was everything. Her support moved the camp. The giant god emperor faction might hold nominal sway elsewhere, but in the Ice Peak camp, he was effectively the central authority, and even progenitors rarely openly defied him. A queer cube, the one that loved conflict, thrummed with exhilaration. I truly look forward to fighting Luo Feng, it thought. It adored clashes with worthy opponents. The gray-clothed woman standing on the deepest 27th layer, Shazhou, also felt battle intent flare up in her eyes. Too few things in the infinite mixed origin space could provoke her. She had battled Xingmang before and had found it boring. She could not even touch him. She craved the pure collision of destructive power and wanted to see who would stand victorious. "Brother Luo Feng, do you want this layer of the destruction world?" Kafu Shu asked, sincere. For him, a good fight was more valuable than territory. "No." Luo Feng shook his head. "Kafu Shu, have your world messengers attack me at full force." Kafu Shu's offer to occupy the destruction world was generous. Layers 23 to 25 lay ownerless and would be easy pickings, but Luo Feng wasn't interested in holding that layer. Instead, he wanted the clash. "Good." Kafu Shu nodded and ordered 230 world messengers to strike. These creatures resembled plants, their countless branch-like limbs loosed in an assault. This destruction force? Luo Feng stood calm as the world messenger's attacks hit him and allowed himself a smile. It's a life-severing force, about 8 parts destruction to 2 parts life. The destruction force of this world benefited him. It was the second variant of destruction force, formed by fused destructive life, that he had encountered since entering the abyss of destruction. Luo Feng immersed himself in cultivation, but the battle with Kafu Shu sent massive ripples throughout the infinite mixed origin space, affecting more and more factions. The Heavenly Origin Camp controlled over half the territory. Many regions had no source world, but they still contained many low-level and high-level origin life forms multiplying and surviving. Devouring a source world's origin had a threshold. Only world-level Hunyuan life could do it. The countless lower origin life required far fewer resources to grow. In one remote area, progenitor Shuiyu governed a small domain. He protected his clan and several weaker families, choosing not to involve himself in wider conflicts. His own progenitor-level power was too slight to stand alone, so he sought protection with a powerful camp, joining the Heavenly Origin Camp and aligning with the Giant God Emperor faction, which avoided needless wars. Not every progenitor was belligerent. For many, joining a large power was a practical way to ensure their clan's survival. A lone progenitor could seclude or hide a life core if they cared only for themselves, but those with clans needed shelter or overwhelming strength. Since allying with the Heavenly Origin Camp, Shuyu's clan had multiplied quietly. No one dared attack a progenitor under the Heavenly Origin banner without risking the whole camp. He fully supported the Giant God Emperor faction and counted on their protection. In critical moments, he would have to answer their call. This is terrifying, far worse than previous wars between the two great camps. Progenitor Shuyu gazed toward the abyss of destruction, where the mightiest beings of the infinite mixed origin space gathered. He knew that if he stepped into the first layer, he would likely be blasted away by Bavayu. Bavayu was low-key in the face of Luo Feng, but he still ranked among the top 30. No one like progenitor Shuyu could ignore him. Kafu Shu, top 10 strength, was 80% destroyed by 3 saber strikes? Shuiyu muttered. This Lord Luo Feng must be among the strongest in the infinite mixed origin space. If I cross him, I can't stand and fight. I would have to flee immediately. Progenitors who lacked frontal combat power typically excelled at self-preservation. Many had mastered a supreme niche power and shone within it, but they avoided direct clashes. Too many progenitors had watched the fight. Even those who missed it could obtain combat footage from allies. They could see the full process of Luo Feng's clash with Kafu Shu and make a rough judgment about Luo Feng's level. The consensus was clear. If they met him in the field, run, don't fight. Beautiful, Lord Moman crowed. As expected of one who breaks laws with force, his strength has risen past ours so fast. He's already stronger than me. Jin, positioned on the 13th layer while Luo Feng cultivated on the 16th, watched with mixed feelings. He disliked Luo Feng's territorial policies. Luo Feng sought to eliminate opportunities for calamity-type cultivators, believing they absorbed the lives of entire source worlds and monopolized them through reincarnation, cutting off hope for the weak. From Luo Feng's perspective, such beings shouldn't exist. Jin admired calamity-type cultivators, thinking them the most outstanding elites who had clawed their way up against overwhelming odds. He had once taken that path himself. Different philosophies, different routes. Jin was willing to cooperate with Luo Feng for the camp's greater good sometimes, but otherwise he kept his distance. You being stronger than me doesn't make you right, Jin thought. Naigu and I are both calamity-type cultivators. Maybe someday a third or fourth calamity type will rise. Chapter 416, Integration. On the 17th layer of the Abyss of Destruction, Yu Huang stood calm and still as a scarlet-robed figure descended toward her. Lord Luo Feng, she said, watching him. Yu Huang. Yu Huang, replied, returning her gaze. Those who could stand among the top 10 each had their own style. Kafu Shu favored straightforward brute force, a way Luo Feng could match and suppress in their strongest areas. Yu Huang, however, fought differently. I know you want the world messengers to help your cultivation, Yu Huang said coldly. Defeat me, and I'll arrange for them to cooperate with you. Luo Feng remembered how he had once been ganged up on by Moman, Jin, and Naigu. He still bore a grudge against the other lords of the cultivator camp, but he kept his tone polite. Very well, he said. This was not a petty scrap over a single layer of the destruction world. It was a clash between camps. Yu Huang did not summon the world messengers to aid her either. Without warning, Yu Huang's body flared with light. Boundless radiance poured out, filling every corner of the layer. Luo Feng felt that light break into countless filaments that folded around him, binding and suppressing. Yu Huang's domain was enormous, a fusion of feather power and light power, strengthened by the mysterious feather realm. Its force would reduce ordinary ancestors to less than half their strength. Luo Feng's body condensed into a strip of blade light and tore through the web of light, sweeping past Yu Huang's original position like a blade severing the air. Yu Huang remained where she had been, then appeared elsewhere, completely unharmed. Her movement technique made her seem omnipresent. She could occupy many positions at the same moment. In movement art, she rivaled the limitless ancestor. Even with Blood Crane territory amplifying him, Luo Feng could not touch Yu Huang. Her movement breaks the limits of time, he thought, frowning. Omnipresence here meant being able to manifest at any of many positions at the same instant. The change of position was wholly at will. Limitless Ancestor had once saved countless ancestors during the war, even under Xingmang's space-time suppression, because of this kind of capability. Only one option left, Luo Feng decided. He drew his blade. The sky-rending blade slashed, and blade light erupted, streaks that locked onto vital energy and cut toward their mark. Tens of thousands of blade lights erupted in an instant, crisscrossing heaven and earth, even piercing space-time to lock onto every sliver of Yu Huang's surrounding energy. Each strand of Yu Huang's light was targeted. Luo Feng condensed his blade lights to an extreme degree. In 2 or 3 breaths, more than 100,000 massive blade lights existed across the destruction world, occupying a third of its space. They hunted their target relentlessly from sky to ground. Luo Feng's Hunyuan Dao of the blade was not yet complete. To maintain the vital energy lock from the mixed origin life extinguishment Dao, each strike was weaker than his fullest power. When he fought Kafu Shu, a single strike could consume a tenth of his reserves. Still, each blade was comparable to many ordinary moves from Mo Man or Jin. The difference was quantity. Luo Feng unleashed an overwhelming number of strikes, and his reserves were so vast that the energy he recovered each breath exceeded Yu Huang's entire body's stores. Yu Huang watched the dense lattice of blade lights fill the layer and shook her head. Each blade was grand and imbued with spirit, chasing and destroying the scattered threads of light. If she did not release her domain fully, the blades would find her true body. I didn't expect even I couldn't evade Lord Luo Feng's blade, she admitted. Inside the abyss of destruction, where energy replenished continuously, she could contend with Luo Feng. Outside it, she would have to flee within 10 breaths. Luo Feng also understood his limits. His pursuit had finite range. Those who could cross space-times in a single step, Yu Huang, limitless ancestor, could slip out of reach. I can only flee, Yu Huang conceded. Naigu, Mo Man, and Jin might gang up on her, but Luo Feng alone had forced her back. She summoned 200 world messengers from the lair and sent them to attack Luo Feng. Watching from the 18th layer, Limitless Ancestor's expression tightened. He was a little stronger than Yu Huang, yet even he could not break Luo Feng's pursuit when it came with over 100,000 blade lights. Inside the destruction world, he could draw on replenishing energy to survive longer, but everyone here competed under normal combat conditions. If Luo Feng ever chose to be merciless, he could cleave through obstacles, imprint his mark on the source shadow, and seize control of a layer of the destruction world. No hiding would stop him. He had once severed 80% of Kafu Shu's body in 3 strikes. The only reason friendly rivalry had been possible was Luo Feng's reluctance to contest the destruction world seriously. How can it be broken? Limitless Ancestor pondered, and then, after more than an epoch, Luo Feng arrived in the 18th layer. Limitless Ancestor engaged him but lost. He fought like Yu Huang, and his only edge was the boundless might. Greater explosive force, but still not enough against Luo Feng's heavily reinforced body, aided by blood crane territory. Luo Feng's blade lights covered sky and earth and pursued all of Limitless Ancestor's energy. Eventually, he conceded. News of Luo Feng's consecutive victories over Yu Huang and Limitless Ancestor rippled through the factions and ancient existences. No one was truly surprised. Most had already acknowledged Luo Feng as among the very highest in combat power. Luo Feng moved on to the 19th layer. Yuan greeted him with a wide grin. As leader who had guided the cultivator camp up from its weakest days, Yuan thrilled to see another supreme fighter within their ranks. Amazing, he said. To defeat Kafu Shu Huang and Limitless Ancestor head-on, I'd be hard-pressed to say I could handle Limitless Ancestor. Limitless Ancestor is omnipresent. I could only consume his reserves, Luo Feng said plainly. He had only mastered one of the highest-level destruction forces. Combined with the vital energy lock, his options were limited. A fully realized Hunyuan Dao of the blade plus the mixed origin Dao would open many more methods. How long have you been a lord? You are already formidable, Yuan chuckled. Shall I send the world messengers at you now? Thank you, Brother Yuan, Luo Feng nodded. Yuan sent out 150 world messengers from the layer to attack. Luo Feng used the assaults to study this new type of destruction force, feeling its destructive mysteries. Although the 19 highest-level destruction forces he had encountered so far rarely integrated life's mysteries, observing others still guided his own destructive understanding. Coming to the abyss of destruction to increase his accumulation in destruction had proven efficient, especially after he had hit a bottleneck in comprehending the Hunyuan Dao of the blade. I should have enough accumulation now, Luo Feng thought, but there's no rush. You can never have too much accumulation. Each destruction world took only an epoch or two. He decided to clear the abyss of destruction layer by layer first. He noticed, though, that despite reaching the 19th layer, he hadn't found any special opportunities. That was hardly surprising. He came primarily to clash with world messengers, not to meticulously explore. Still, his main goal here had been achieved, sufficient accumulation. The next step was to integrate everything he'd gathered, to unify heart and Dao so his mind became one with his blade. Only then could he complete the Hunyuan Dao of the blade. Integration into one, heart and Dao in unity. Those are the next 2 major hurdles, he reflected. After more than an epoch, Luo Feng told Yuan to withdraw the world messengers. Yuan did so and laughed. Are you moving on to the next layer? I'll stay here in seclusion for a while, Luo Feng said. He felt ready to attempt integration. If the attempt failed, he could continue to later layers, gather more accumulation, then try again. Different accumulations might yield different insights. Yuan watched with delight as Luo Feng built a cave dwelling and began secluded cultivation. He returned to his own cave to continue his comprehension of the primal chaos rule operation, Dao's source system. Ice Peak Ancestor, who held the 20th layer, had prepared to be challenged by Luo Feng. When he learned Luo Feng had lingered on the 19th layer for more than an epoch and then withdrawn his world messengers only to begin secluded cultivation, Ice Peak secretly breathed a sigh of relief. He knew he did not match Luo Feng. As leader of the Ice Peak camp, he disliked the thought of Luo Feng trampling on him to gain further fame, but he had already made mental preparations to preserve his dignity if he lost. Who would have thought Luo Feng would postpone the confrontation? Luo Feng relaxed as he faced world messengers, sometimes parrying casually, sometimes enduring attacks. But integration demanded repeated trials of powerful techniques. He experimented constantly. With a flick of his finger, a sharp blade light tore the heavens and earth. Pondering, he concentrated and let 5 terrifying blade lights descend, forming an array that annihilated everything inside. Through such cycles of contemplation, experimentation, and refinement, the Hunyuan Dao of the blade gradually clarified in his mind. One careless tap produced a point of blade light that pierced the space-time obstruction of the entire 19th layer and even extended into the 20th layer below, startling Ice Peak Ancestor. Suddenly, a space-time fluctuation surged through the layer, and the Luo Feng who had been seated vanished. Huh? Yuan's face changed. A sudden space-time fluctuation. Luo Feng disappeared? He contacted Luo Feng's other avatars and received a terse reply. I encountered an opportunity. An opportunity? Yuan was stunned. He remembered that long ago, Kafu Shu had found an opportunity while exploring the 19th layer, a hidden space-time containing battle armor that had accompanied him for countless years. Kafu Shu and Luo Feng both passed through here, found opportunities, and left quickly. Yuan, who had lived here and controlled this layer for ages, had never encountered an opportunity himself. A hot sting of resentment rose in him as he watched the spot where Luo Feng had vanished. Chapter 417, Mountain of Doom. Countless layers of space-time intersected, shielding a hidden core. A vast, mighty destruction force swirled into a massive vortex around it, tearing and compressing space-time so that the closer one approached the core, the smaller and denser space-time became. Once trapped inside, it was easy to lose oneself completely. Luo Feng rode a wisp of space-time fluctuation, carried steadily toward the core. Luo Feng, what's happening? Yuan contacted Luo Feng's other avatars. Luo Feng stared in astonishment at the distant core. The hidden pocket of space-time around it cut off all external perception. No method of space-time probing, life aura sensing, or karma detection could reach this place. I must have stumbled on a fortuitous opportunity, Luo Feng said, then examined the core carefully. The destruction force that comprised the vortex contained innumerable profound secrets. While destruction mysteries were primary, traces of life, matter, water, fire, lightning, karma, darkness, earth, time, space, force, and others were all woven into it, ultimately coalescing into the irresistible destruction force. Such terrifying destruction force, even my body would be annihilated in a few breaths. Luo Feng's perception told him that perhaps only an initial ranked being in the entire limitless primal space might have a chance of withstanding this force. And even initial level beings couldn't reach this place without difficulty. They couldn't even hold the first layer of the abyss of destruction. Yet, strangely, as the space-time fluctuation carried him, the destruction force avoided harming him at all. The folded layers of space-time here were labyrinthine. Even Xing Mang would need a long time to comprehend them. Luo Feng, however, was being carried deeper and deeper toward the core. At last he saw it. Hidden within the vortex, a mountain barely revealed itself through the choking destruction force. It seemed to be the source of this annihilating energy. Even his sky-rending blade trembled slightly at the sight. So many weapons. Embedded in the mountain were knives, swords, spears, axes, countless arms of war. Those desolation weapons were only part of the mountain's nature. The destruction weapons people occasionally obtain in the abyss of destruction must be nurtured here, Luo Feng speculated. Pulled by the space-time stream, he drew nearer. When he broke free of the vortex, the destruction mountain stood fully before him, pitch black, its surface flowing with heavy, black mist. The weapons set in its slopes gleamed faintly, but the most striking features were 34 clusters of light, like 34 stars in the dark. Their lights braided together, forming the veins of the mountain. The third ultimate life form to arrive at Destruction Mountain. Pass the 7 trials, and you may take charge of the abyss of destruction. A message reached Luo Feng as he descended to the outer edge of the mountain. He paused, eyes brightening. Pass 7 trials and control the abyss of destruction? The limitless primal space had never known the true core or how to command it. Yet, here was the secret. Besides me, 2 other ultimate life forms also know this, he thought. Kafushu once encountered a fortune in the 19th layer of the abyss and obtained that battle armor. Others who explored the abyss sometimes found minor opportunities, but only Kafu Shu got genuinely precious prizes. The outside world already knew Kafu Shu had obtained something rare. If Kafu Shu had come here, someone else powerful must have too. Who were the other two? The other 7 lords from my camp probably haven't been here, Luo Feng guessed. The 7 lords shared records and information, but this place hadn't been mentioned. Either they'd never come, or they kept it secret. Xing Mang, Luo Feng suspected, wouldn't be petty enough to omit recording such a place if he had been here. Likely he hadn't. Apparently, coming here required some kind of selection. Only 3 had passed that threshold so far. Curious about the 34 lights, Luo Feng approached. At the mountain's base was a wide plain. As he neared, an invisible suppression grew stronger until it forced him to land. Like the mysterious eternal land, vast locations of that sort imposed pressuring rules. But the Destruction Mountain's suppression had a much smaller, more intense sphere of influence. The closer one moved toward it, the harsher the oppression became. Even lesser ancestors would be pinned in place. Luo Feng forced himself forward and noticed a mountain path. The 34 clusters of light wove together into veins outlining a route from the foot to the summit. With my power I can't fly, he realized, so the only way to the summit is along the mountain path. It was only a conjecture, but then he saw 7 statues standing at the foot. The first statue was a colossal avian beast, carved of the same black matter as the mountain. The second was a 9-headed great snake, its body segmented like the infinite great snake race. The third took the form of a cloud of mist with an eye on its surface, resembling the undying and undestroyable hermit. The fourth was a massive cube made of 125 smaller cubes. The fifth was a black star. The sixth was a black mountain reminiscent of the Destruction Mountain itself. The 7th statue, however, was a miniature abyss of destruction. Inside that tiny abyss, layer upon layer contained even smaller statues. Luo Feng could make out names and figures. Bafayu, primal chaos beast ancestor Wulan, Minghuang, Moman, Mogus, Kafu Shu, limitless ancestor Yuan, ice peak ancestor, Xingmang, Shazhou. The list continued. Those who had historically controlled layers of the destruction world were depicted in that 7th statue. Information flooded Luo Feng's mind. The 7 statues represented 7 trials. One had to defeat them in sequence, weak to strong, to qualify to challenge the mountain's core. Defeat all 7, and one could command the abyss of destruction. Luo Feng's heart quickened as he strode toward the statues. When he came within range, the avian statue suddenly erupted in terrible flames. Its eyes ignited, its head tilted as if scrutinizing him. Endless fire spewed from the statue in all directions, lashing at Luo Feng's body. His blood-colored robes snapped in the flare, and a protective energy layer around him resisted the heat and erosion. The avian statue lunged. Its movement was uncanny, like Yu Huang or the limitless ancestor, omnipresent and instantaneous. Even boosted by the blood crane territory, Luo Feng could not evade the pounce. The bird's wings, like enormous blades, slashed at his robes. The protective layer tore, Luo Feng's robes fluttered, and his body rocked. One step backward sent the ground shuddering and cracked the earth beneath him. Massive claws materialized and seized toward his chest. Luo Feng grabbed the talons with both hands. The flaming bird struggled, but could not break free. Luo Feng unleashed 180 billion cubic meters of primordial origin energy, and with a single hand, slammed the flaming avian into the ground. The statue burst into dispersing flames the instant it hit. A colossal bird's head soon reformed before him, opening to spew 5-colored flames that scorched at Luo Feng. Enduring the blast, he advanced, his figure transforming into a blade of light that sliced through the bird's head. The exchanges were blindingly fast. The avian statue reassembled and dispersed unpredictably, omnipresent. Its flames were fierce and its physical power enormous. This avian statue is awkward in its technique, but its power is tremendous. It ranks among the top 20 in the limitless primal space, Luo Feng judged. It's comparable to the limitless ancestor before his breakthrough. And this is only the first statue? As he fought, Luo Feng probed for the statue's energy core. When the avian recondensed, he struck. 5 radiant blade lights shot from his fingers, descending in a deadly formation. The blades enveloped the area around the flaming avian, twisting and darting until they struck the core. The moment the core was touched, the flaming bird completely dissolved. Flames converged not far away and reformed the original statue, motionless. Luo Feng's dissipated blade light was absorbed into the ground beneath him, leaving a faint imprint. He understood immediately. Like the seats in the Eternal Land, leaving an imprint here meant one could manifest an avatar directly next time, sparing the arduous journey. Passing the first trial granted the right to leave that imprint. As Luo Feng's mark merged into the soil, the oppressive rules around the mountain eased. The 34 clusters of light revealed themselves more clearly. They were luminous spheres, each formed from one of 34 highest-level destruction force secret patterns. Chapter 418, Emotional and Memory Shock. The essences of 34 destruction forces are right in front of me. Luo Feng observed carefully. His primary reason for coming to the abyss of destruction was to collect mysteries of the Hunyuan Dao of destruction. Previously, he had endured the World Messenger's siege and meditated on the destruction force himself, but his personal insights might be incomplete. Here, everything was laid out. He had already reached the threshold for forging the Hunyuan Dao of the blade, and the deeper the accumulation, the easier the path to creating that Dao. These 34 clusters of light, each one contains the mysteries of one type of destruction force, Luo Feng murmured, surprised, and they include destruction forces from the 1st up to the 19th layers. Could it be that the abyss of destruction has exactly 34 layers? He wondered. But he didn't linger on the speculation. He focused instead on the mysteries themselves. Luo Feng sat cross-legged and began to observe and comprehend. 30 epochs passed in the blink of an eye, and the secrets of those destruction forces settled into his understanding. He noticed something else. The light from the 34 clusters converged into a web of veins that spread through the entire destruction mountain. Those veins wove the mysteries of the 34 destruction forces into a single, integrated whole. Luo Feng immediately thought of the Skyborn Mix Source's life core. A life core is formed with one mystery as the principal strand and many other mysteries as supplements, creating a complete entity. This seems like a life core path oriented toward destruction, he realized. A life core with destruction as the main thread, compatible with multiple mysteries. If guided by Destruction Mountain, theoretically one could unearth 34 destruction forces and fuse them into one. Of course, that was the ideal scenario. This path is suited only for progenitors. It's not for us cultivator lords, Luo Feng concluded. Progenitors are born with life cores in the infinite mixed origin space and can naturally contain many mysteries, dozens even. Cultivator lords must comprehend them by themselves. It's already hard enough to master a single Hunyuan Dao. Mysterious places can spawn supreme powers, he reflected, but no matter how special a place is, it can't hand you a Hunyuan Dao. The Wall of Fire Hell, for example, had at most 12 types of fire forces. The Blood Crane territory held 3, blood power, undying power, and shadow power. Mysterious places could produce the highest level forces, but a Dao is a system of rules that must be discovered and pioneered by an individual. The limitless primal space had no Hunyuan Dao originally. These came into being only after later generations broke new ground. From that perspective, progenitors and certain mysterious places were more compatible, both born with life cores. Some beings are even born progenitors. Cultivators, however, have none of that convenience. We cultivators have no life core. We must start from nothing and forge our own path, Luo Feng thought. But once you pioneer a Dao, you immediately become the supreme life form, an undying. Master 2 Hunyuan Dao, and you can ascend to the peak of the limitless primal space. He still admired cultivator lords. They climbed from the bottom to the summit step by step. The weakest cultivators were barely specks before the low-level Hunyuan lives. A single breath from such a being could slaughter countless lives. The supreme cultivators could even suppress progenitors. Take Xingmang and Shazhou. Shazhou specializes in destruction, but Xingmang is versed in too many things. He sees past, present, and future, masters space-time. Combined, Xingmang is far superior to Shazhou. If this destruction mountain guides me, then even as a cultivator lord I might be fit to wield it, Luo Feng smiled, rising. He skirted the sculptures and looked over the whole mountain. So long as he kept a safe distance from the 7 sculptures, he would avoid triggering a battle. This destruction mountain really yields a lot of weapons, he thought as he moved closer. The weapons embedded in the mountain became more obvious. Twisted trees and scorched landscapes resolved into view. Finally, he stood before the mountain itself. At his current level, the mountain's surface showed no seams. Patterns imbued with the essence of destruction crawled across it, and black mist condensed along those lines. As an undying existence, Luo Feng dared to try anything. He reached out and touched the rock. The instant his skin met the stone, a boundless cold killing intent surged through him and slammed into his spirit. Luo Feng's spiritual will had been honed to an extreme height. Even combined soul assaults from the Annihilation Ancestor and others had failed to shake him. This pressure was severe, but he withstood it. Still, the mountain flooded him with scenes of slaughter and hatred, countless massacres from the history of the limitless primal space, each soaked in intense emotion, love, hate, enmity, resentment. Even the skyborn mixed sources carried endless, intense feelings, most of them originating from beings in the source worlds. Each source world produced vast numbers of lives, most of them short and beset by calamity. Countless beings suffered crash after crash at the hands of skyborn mixed sources. Everything I had was destroyed by those skyborn mixed sources. Kill, kill, kill! A voice raged in one memory, as a cultivator hurled himself at a wisp of aura left by a world-level Hunyuan being. Even a mere wisp descended by a world-level Hunyuan was a catastrophe no life in that source world could withstand. The strongest among them were mere toys for the world-level Hunyuan. You dare swing your blade at me? Another memory showed the twisted figure of that wisp devouring the cultivator. Why can't we resist? Why can we only wait for death? The cultivator died full of bitter unwillingness. Elsewhere, lovers embraced and faced catastrophe together. Intense love and reluctance, absolute helplessness. All of this, towering killing intent and countless scenes streamed into Luo Feng's mind. He estimated the source. 30% was the killing intent of skyborn mixed sources themselves. 70% came from the hatred of innumerable cultivators in source worlds. Those cultivators hated the overwhelming imbalance, their own powerlessness and weakness, the injustice of the Tao. I am a cultivator, Luo Feng thought through the flood of impressions. I am strong enough. Those world-level Hunyuan are courting death if they stand against me. Most progenitors would have to flee from me like wolves. But what can I do? Although Luo Feng's will resisted the mountain's soul impact, personally feeling those emotions was still a tremendous shock. Observing tragedies is one thing, experiencing their emotional weight is another. The touch had stirred something deep in him. His killing intent flared. He realized then the implication for the 8 lords who wanted to protect all source worlds. Skyborn mixed sources, Ice Peak Camp, and other weaker forces. As long as they have world-level Hunyuan and some lesser progenitors, the source worlds are the perfect fodder for their life cores. Defending all source worlds would be far harder than he'd imagined. Not only might they fail, but even the current 3,600 world clusters could be dragged into disaster. Just as Elder Brother Yuan said, "Our cultivator camp is not strong enough," he admitted. The killing intent and the memory scenes gradually faded and ceased to push at his mind, but the experience would not leave him. The emotions, the endless hatred, fear, and loss had been engraved in his heart by that single touch of the mountain. When the impact ebbed, Luo Feng sensed new information. On this destruction mountain, precious destruction fruits condense. These fruits can cause a progenitor's life core to grow toward destruction. He learned that defeating each sculpture would grant one fruit. The more sculptures a progenitor defeated, the more destruction fruits they could obtain. Destruction fruits could be consumed to advance life core growth, or they could be exchanged for treasures nurtured by Destruction Mountain. By the sensed rules, he could take one destruction fruit or choose to exchange it for a treasure. One fruit could be traded for a single item from a pool of 3,000 treasures. Any one of those items would be more valuable than the sky-rending blade, exquisite weapons, battle armor, and other relics nurtured by the mountain. One fruit for one item among 3,000 treasures. That battle armor looks very similar to Kafu's shoes, Luo Feng mused. spotting a suit of armor in the treasure list. Kafu Shu must have been one of the three who came here. He didn't consume the fruit, he traded it for that armor. Since he had no life core, a destruction fruit would be useless to him except to sell. He planned instead to exchange it for a suitable treasure when the time came. Patience was wise. The more sculptures he defeated, the more fruits he would gather, and the better treasures he could obtain. He could feel that the abyss of destruction was guiding growth in the direction of destruction. The veins revealed by Destruction Mountain and the destruction fruits themselves all steered life cores that way. From these clues, the ones who came to Destruction Mountain should be me, Kafu Shu, and Sha Zhou, Luo Feng deduced. That was the likeliest combination. Sha Zhou, despite mastering only 2 supreme powers, had destructive strength that far surpassed Infinite Serpent Ancestor and Ice Peak Ancestor. She now occupied the 27th layer of the Abyss of Destruction. Luo Feng suspected Sha Zhou had been here and might have consumed destruction fruits. Otherwise, why would her 2 powers combine so seamlessly? This mountain was a tremendous opportunity, especially for progenitors. For him, the benefits were threefold: comprehension of destructive mysteries, accumulation of fruits to exchange for powerful weapons, and the chance to fight 7 formidable sculptures. If he defeated them all, he might even take charge of this highest-level mysterious place. He tightened his focus and moved toward the sculptures. From a distance, the avian statue remained motionless, but the second sculpture, a 9-headed great serpent, began to stir. As it awakened, its body expanded with terrifying speed, soon stretching across the land around Destruction Mountain. Its coils wrapped the terrain many times over, and its 9 heads fixed their gaze on Luo Feng. Its invisible might already exceeded that of the Infinite Serpent Ancestor. Luo Feng's brow furrowed. The second sculpture is this strong? Could Kafu Shu have only defeated 1 sculpture? He realized then that the 7 trials would be far more difficult than he'd imagined. Chapter 416, An Unfair Victory. The 9-headed great snake lay coiled across the entire landmass of Destruction Mountain, its massive form watching Luo Feng. What a size, Luo Feng thought, privately astonished. Size wasn't everything. He knew the Infinite Serpent Ancestor could swell to rival a world cluster, yet lose any real destructive power. Energy reserves were finite. Every lord and ancestor had an optimal combat size. Deliberately enlarging oneself often meant becoming weaker. Still, Luo Feng felt the snake's reserves were much greater than the Infinite Serpent Ancestors. Suddenly, it felt as if the whole world slammed into him. The force sent Luo Feng skidding backward, furrowing the earth. His protective energy layer shuddered and distorted. His blood-colored robe even showed fractures. What power! This is the strongest opponent I've faced so far, he realized, alarmed. He also understood he had been struck by the snake's body. Before he could react, the snake's tail lashed out. The blow struck with the combined might of 20 to 30 ordinary ancestors, blasting Luo Feng backward again. On the vast plain at the foot of Destruction Mountain, the snake's bulk and dominance were obvious. Luo Feng, far smaller, was repeatedly hit, unable to detect some attacks, unable to dodge. Yet his defenses were formidable. After his protective layer and blood-colored robe absorbed the brunt, the snake's strikes could no longer seriously harm him. Luo Feng allowed the hits, outwardly calm. Finding such an opponent in the entire limitless primal space was rare, especially among the 7 sculptures, where defeating one only meant the next would be stronger. He intended to study this 9-headed great snake thoroughly before striking with full force. He wasn't in a hurry. After taking hundreds of blows, he felt the surrounding space shift. He was trapped inside the snake's body as it contracted, collapsing space-time inward to crush him. The snake's methods were eerily similar to those of the Infinite Great Serpent clan. During the war between the 2 camps, Luo Feng had seen multiple ancestor-level Infinite Great Snakes and had learned their tricks. Members of that clan could fuse. 3 world-level Hunyuan Infinite Great Snakes could become a 3-headed snake, and once, 9 high-level Hunyuan snakes had fused into a 9-headed form, the clan's fusion limit. This one before him was a 9-headed great snake, and its skin patterns and aura were even more refined than the Infinite Serpent Ancestors. It was a more perfected Infinite Great Snake. Luo Feng also considered the 7 sculptures on Destruction Mountain. Each seemed to have a prototype. The third resembled the Hermit. The fourth, a cube of 125 smaller cubes, resembled the Devil Ruins. The fifth was a black star, and so on. The 7th sculpture behaved differently, changing with the balance of power in the limitless primal space. Destruction Mountain absorbed killing intent and intense emotions. Its abyss of destruction had already shocked Luo Feng when he touched it. The snake used its body like a prison world, crushing and squeezing. Yet Luo Feng's body was hardy. He stubbornly resisted the compression. The snake's might, while immense, felt somewhat blunt, its moves direct and forceful, but lacking finesse. Whether first sculpture or second, their powers were fearsome but clumsy. Realizing the snake relied on straightforward pressure, Luo Feng stopped holding back. He drew his blade and unleashed a blinding torrent of blade light that split obstacle after obstacle, cleaving through the snake's flesh. The slice severed a section of its body. Luo Feng pressed the attack, sending blade light after blade light, each carrying the essence of nothing it cannot cleave. The massive body broke into dozens of pieces, but they reassembled quickly with negligible energy loss. The 9-headed great snake vanished into the void, seeking refuge. Luo Feng sheathed his blade and spread his hands. Half of the energy in his 1.08 billion primordial origins flared at once. Limitless surging energy channeled by his will condensed into 10 fierce blade lights. They flew from his 10 fingers, crisscrossing the void to form the 10 directions blade array, completely sealing the space around Destruction Mountain. Nothing could be spared. This was his upgrade from the 5 directions blade array, an insight born from comprehending the 34 types of destruction force on Destruction Mountain and how they combined. His control over energy had come a long way since he first became a lord. Where he once could only trigger a source great destruction blast, now he condensed power into blade lights without leakage. Under the 10 directions blade array's crushing force, the surface of Destruction Mountain trembled with dense black mist, resisting but faltering. The other 6 static sculptures remained unharmed. Only the 9-headed great snake couldn't hide, its winding mass unable to avoid the crushing light. It shattered into tens of millions of fragments. Though it fused back many times, the continuous onslaught finally reached its core. The snake dissipated and condensed back into a sculpture at its original spot. Luo Feng drew the returning blade lights back into himself. Activating the 10 directions blade array briefly had cost little. Most of his energy returned. He stood before the newly reformed 9-headed snake sculpture and exhaled. He directly defeated the second sculpture, but only by using almost everything. Even if Xingmang had intervened, Luo Feng doubted the 9-headed snake could have been torn apart that easily. Its power could rival the combined force of many ancestors, and its body was nearly impregnable. Perhaps only Sha Zhou, besides himself, could rend it. That the second sculpture was so formidable showed why he had to go all out. He turned to the third sculpture, the mist sculpture resembling the hermit, and immediately approached. As he drew near, the solidified mist began to flow, and an eye condensed on its surface, watching him. The world shifted. White mist swirled all around and through him. Each movement became excruciatingly difficult. Even walking cost enormous effort. The mist domain was stronger than the primal chaos beast ancestors domain, previously the strongest in terms of domains. This mist suppression was a whole tier higher. Luo Feng tried to cleave. He poured his 1.08 billion primordial origins into dazzling blade lights, but they barely traveled before being worn away. The energy erased by the mist was absorbed into it, leaving the white shroud vast and undiminished. Repeated assaults, even with new techniques, did little. Under this domain, the 10 directions blade array couldn't be deployed. The blade lights all eroded in moments. He felt helpless. His immense power could not shake the mist. And this was only the third sculpture. Without warning, the mist tightened. Its density increased rapidly, and its suppression intensified. Movements grew harder. Eventually, Luo Feng could hardly move at all. The mist contracted like a viscous liquid into a narrowing stream that encased and crushed him. Anyone with a weaker body would have been ground to dust. Thanks to his inherently tough physique and the shadow power and undying power of the Blood Crane territory, he held on, stubbornly resisting the erosion and pressure. Trapped and unable to act, Luo Feng had no choice. He hadn't expected the third sculpture to force him so far. Frontal blade techniques meant nothing against the hermit sculpture. With a thought, he transformed his physical body into pure energy and merged with his 1.08 billion primordial origins. Those primordial origins, like brilliant clusters of stars, arranged into an optimized source Great Destruction array. With his mastery of the highest level severance power and increased accumulation in the Destruction Dao, the array's self-detonation power had increased roughly 2/10 since the Camp War. Boom! The array detonated. When pure energy exceeds a certain limit, it triggers a special reaction that annihilates surrounding space-time and matter. The resulting annihilation energy fed back into the blast, amplifying its power. The white mist stream that had been compressing him was too close, so it took the blast at point-blank range. Even its toughness shattered, its energy core was ruptured. With the impact, the white mist stream was annihilated. The explosion swept across the landmass of Destruction Mountain. When the dust settled, the annihilated energy, guided by an invisible will, reassembled into Luo Feng's form, dressed in black. He tapped his link to the Blood Crane territory and let its power flow through him. A new blood-colored robe formed on his body. Did I win? Luo Feng stared at the third sculpture as it reformed in the distance, a little dazed. Beating the third sculpture felt like an unfair victory, thanks in no small part to his own last resort tactic. Thanks to our old alliance leader Very for the reward. Chapter 420, Leaving Mount Doom. Chapter 400, Leaving Mount Doom. Chapter 417, Departing the Destruction Mountain. Each unit of Luo Feng's energy held vast spiritual power and the force of his will. Even when he unleashed the Source Great Destruction, he could still recover 20% of his reserves. I only won by luck this time, Luo Feng thought, wrapped in blood-red robes, replaying the previous battle in his mind. He had to admit the third sculpture had thoroughly surpassed his current level. Judging by the power of progenitors in the limitless primal space, a being at that level was effectively undying, an almost inextinguishable force. No matter how often he used Source Great Destruction, it wouldn't genuinely threaten them. It was precisely because the 7 sculptures served as trials that each had an energy core weakness, and that alone had given him a chance to win by sheer fortune. My Tao of the Blade is still nowhere near the Source Great Destruction. It's far weaker, Luo Feng mused. In terms of his Tao of the Blade, he ranked with Xingmang and Sha Zhou. Yet one Source Great Destruction could severely wound a giant god emperor or more than 20 progenitors. That move had once shaken the morale in the Heavenly Origin camp and forced them to stop fighting. He had relied on it again to barely defeat the third sculpture, a victory that, once seen, others would no longer fall for. Whoosh. Luo Feng stepped to the Destruction Mountain and reached out to touch it again. This time the contact struck his soul with waves of hatred, killing intent, and countless scenes that chilled his expression. Enduring the assault, he gleaned more information, the destruction fruits, exchangeable treasures, and more. I can now claim 3 destruction fruits, or I can exchange them for other treasures. Can treasures equivalent to 3 destruction fruits be exchanged? He wondered, surprised. 1 destruction fruit could evolve a life core in the destruction direction or be traded for a treasure on the level of Kafu Shu's battle armor. Exchanging 3 meant a far greater qualitative leap, enough to tempt any progenitor or lord. There are only 6 treasures available to choose from, the information said. A seed, a stone, a drop of water, a ball of flame, a globe of golden liquid, and a ray of colorful light. All 6 were nascent, mysterious lands, embryonic forms that had nurtured only one type of highest-level force. In Luo Feng's perception, the seed brimmed with overwhelming vitality and resilience, the highest-level life force. The stone exuded incomparable stability and defense. The next 4 contained highest-level forces of water, fire, material, and light, respectively. Though still immature and confined to the limitless primal space, these embryonic treasures could be refined into portable forms. Even a fully formed mysterious land, like the relatively common Blood Crane territory, was enormous. It had taken Luo Feng 10 epochs to move it to the origin continent source world. Some lands were too massive to relocate. These embryonic lands, however, could be carried without burden. A full mysterious land can only lend part of its power when you're outside it. 30% increase is already excellent. But these embryonic forms, integrated into the body, can lend their full power, he realized. Borrowed power didn't require the deep study necessary for those who spent their lives probing a highest level force. He estimated one could still use 60 to 70% of it. If I choose, I'll pick something that fits my creation and destruction path, he decided. My defenses are already strong enough. What I need is offense. The last 3 treasures would all serve that end. The highest level flame, combined with creation and destruction, would boost raw destruction. The golden liquid, flowing and razor-like, contained a top-level material force that could become a natural weapon. Crucially, after life and destruction, Luo Feng's next strongest enlightenment was the path of matter, though comprehending it would be millions of times harder than life or destruction. The ray of colorful light held a highest-level light force. Mastering it could render him omnipresent, extend his Tao of the blade everywhere, and grant an unavoidable hit ability like Ming Huang. In sheer power, the ray of colorful light would help most. But long-term, for enlightenment and synergy, the golden liquid might be the better fit. No rush, Luo Feng told himself. Once I create the Hunyuan Tao of the blade, I might have a chance at the 4th sculpture. If I earn another destruction fruit, I can exchange for an even better treasure. He turned his attention to the 4th sculpture, an enormous cube composed of 125 smaller cubes. This one should be much stronger than the 3rd, he expected. I'm likely to lose badly. He had already prepared for that possibility, but still walked toward the sculptures. While reviewing the treasure data, his body had recovered to peak condition. The first 3 sculptures had fallen silent, but the giant cube of the 4th suddenly exuded an overwhelming presence, far stronger than the Devil Ruins, and locked an invisible fluctuation onto Luo Feng. He grasped the sky-rending blade and braced himself. The 19th layer of the Abyss of Destruction. Moman detected a space-time fluctuation. A familiar figure crossed through and appeared on that layer. Luo Feng looked disheveled at this moment, his reserves below 10% and his aura faint. Luo Feng. Moman hurried over, pressing, "Where have you been? You were gone more than 30 epochs." "It was a hidden space-time inside the Abyss of Destruction," Luo Feng answered, smiling. "I'll record all the information about it and store it in the initial land." There was no reason to keep the opportunity secret from other lords. The entry threshold was simply prohibitively high. Including himself, only 3 ultimate life forms had ever entered. "Good," Moman said, smiling with curiosity. Both Kafu Shu and Luo Feng had encountered opportunities on the 19th layer, and as master of this layer, Moman wanted to know why he himself had never entered. "Why is your aura so weak?" he asked. "Was it dangerous there?" He knew well how strong Luo Feng's defenses had become, especially after he took control of the Blood Crane territory, but Luo Feng's current vagueness was unsettling. "It wasn't dangerous. I exhausted myself," Luo Feng replied lightly. It had been a trial. Moman understood. "Are you going to continue secluding yourself or move on to the next layer?" "I'll stay here a while," Luo Feng said. Moman nodded and left him be. In his cave on the 19th layer, Luo Feng sat cross-legged and reviewed the crushing defeat he had suffered against the 4th sculpture. It had been a total rout. He'd had no way to fight back. He could only rely on defense to endure, and that passive endurance had felt suffocating. He had found one opening to unleash a source great destruction. But under that massive explosion, the giant cube split into 125 small cubes that scattered. Only 9 were annihilated, and even those 9 quickly reconstituted themselves. After using the source great destruction, his strength plummeted, and the 125 cubes continued to batter him until he was severely wounded. With his reserves below 10%, he fled at once. Because he had left a mark on the Destruction Mountain, he could manifest an avatar or travel there in his true body and go in his true body. Luo Feng did not want to be annihilated outright. He escaped. With nearly 10% of his reserves, it would take about 15 minutes of Earth time to recover to peak. If he'd been annihilated, recovery would have been a nightmare. My true strength is still far below the third sculpture. In front of the fourth, I am completely helpless, he admitted. The difficulty of refining and controlling the abyss of destruction was astronomical. Top mysterious lands in the limitless primal space were notoriously hard to refine and control. Some had no known method at all. Luo Feng immediately recorded the intelligence on the Destruction Mountain and stored it in the initial land, accessible only to lords. The latest intelligence on the Abyss of Destruction? Moman noticed the new entry and began reading. Luo Feng had recorded everything about the Destruction Mountain except the full strength of the fourth sculpture and the detailed play-by-play of his own defeat. Pass through 7 trials and you can take control of the Abyss of Destruction? Moman's eyes shone. He finally understood the method to refine and control that mysterious land. Including Luo Feng, only 3 have ever entered? 7 sculptures. The first rival's strength is comparable to the Undying Progenitor before his breakthrough. The second rival is comparable to the combined force of 2 infinite serpent ancestors. The third even suppressed Luo Feng. Moman's heart shook at the account. The rewards, destruction fruits, and exchange treasures were tempting, but the 7 sculpture trials were forbiddingly difficult. He contacted Jin at once. Brother Jin, read this. Brother Luo Feng recorded it. You'll definitely be interested. Jin accessed the intelligence immediately and indeed was intensely curious about the Abyss of Destruction. Each layer contained a kind of destruction force, and Jin had long believed the Abyss worth pursuing. So this is the way to refine and control the Abyss, he murmured. 7 trials, first opponent comparable to the former Undying Progenitor? Jin's heart trembled. Before the Undying Progenitor's breakthrough, he'd occupied the 14th layer, while Jin had been on the 12th. Despite the occupier's advantage, their strengths had been nearly equal. Even if I entered, I might not pass the first trial, Jin realized. Mysterious lands were born in the limitless primal space and did not understand the idea of a primal destruction way. They favored being naturally more destructive. Progenitors had to excavate 34 types of destruction force along the destruction direction because similar types gave little help. Those 34 forces covered dozens of profound Daos, a path that could drive any progenitor to despair. Cultivator Lord Xingmang had created 2 Hunyuan Dao. Jin had created a primal destruction way, yet neither could enter that hidden spacetime. The entry threshold alone was already staggering, and control was almost unattainable. Kafu Shu and Luo Feng had been led into the 19th layer. Perhaps reaching the 19th layer was the minimum requirement. Kafu Shu, Luo Feng, and Sha Zhou all mastered a highest-level destruction force, so at least one mastered destruction force seemed to be another requirement. Luo Feng's intelligence confirmed Kafu Shu had entered because his battle armor matched the treasures available for exchange at the Destruction Mountain. It also strongly suspected Sha Zhou had entered. Among beings stronger than Kafu Shu who mastered destruction force, only Devil Ruins and Sha Zhou remained. Devil Ruins was born strong and had shown little improvement. Sha Zhou had grown during a growth period to reach the limitless primal space's peak. My primal destruction way is itself a highest-level destruction force, Jin thought. The only problem is my strength. Progenitors sought to excavate more power. Cultivator lords strove to create more Daos. Jin's primal destruction way was 90% destruction and 10% life. He had some understanding of life, but not enough to form a Dao primarily of life. Comprehending a Dao required tremendous insight. Before Luo Feng broke out of the cage, he had already grasped a mixed-origin life extinguishment Dao, 70% life, 30% destruction, and his understanding of destruction was deep. After becoming a lord, Luo Feng still had to go to the Abyss of Destruction to deepen his destruction accumulations. Jin's accumulated insight was far less. Cultivation imposed limits. Some brilliant figures reached their limit at world-level Hunyuan, some after 1 Hunyuan Dao. Compared to those who could not escape the cage, they shone, but each had their ceiling. Even Xingmang and Luo Feng, who broke out through sheer force, had limits. Back on the 19th layer, Luo Feng calmed his mind and peered across spacetime. He followed causality and surveyed territory after territory. The Heavenly Origin camp's lands, the Ice Peak camp's domains, and many smaller forces. At the Destruction Mountain, I encountered countless waves of killing intent and hatred, and many memory scenes as if I'd lived them, he reflected. Many were ancient, many were current. There are 3,916 ongoing disasters right now. Luo Feng sat and split off 3,916 threads of thought, each steering toward one of those territories. Each thought began condensing power, growing stronger. Traveling to a single territory could take dozens of days. To change 3,916 disasters, his true body could not arrive in time. Only avatars could be deployed. The 3,916 thoughts took about 15 hours of Earth time to condense until each reached 1/10,000th of Luo Feng's true body reserves. That level of power was enough to sweep aside and annihilate any world-level Hunyuan. Act, Luo Feng ordered. He would not be merciful toward some world-level Hunyuan in those calamities. 3,916 black-clad Luo Feng avatars descended and acted simultaneously.